Just found out husband has a 2-year-old daughter. My husband, 27, and I, 27, got together on October 16, 2022. He moved from Florida to Kansas to be with my son and I. A few months ago we found out that I can't have more kids and I'm actually scheduled for a medically necessary hysterectomy early 2025. Well, today my husband's ex called me. I didn't know it was her until I answered, and she told me that her 2-year-old daughter is my husband's. She was conceived 2 months before my husband and I got together. She's in Florida. I'm not able to move to Florida due to my son's dad living here. I feel like the only option at this point is divorce. I won't leave my son behind to move to Florida and I would never expect my husband to stay in Kansas and not be there to raise his daughter. I can't explain the amount of sad I am. I never in a million years saw this coming. And I don't even know what to do at this point. Relevant comments. OOP and her husband need to get the paternity testing done before doing anything further. Reply, we are absolutely doing a paternity test before anything. I can 100% see it just being her trying to get him back, but the resemblance between the two is uncanny. But we will definitely do the paternity tests before making any decisions moving forward. We are definitely getting a DNA test done first. But her not telling him for 2 years is absolutely disgusting in my opinion. As someone with a kid, I could never imagine hiding a child from their father unless their father is violent. And my husband has never even once raised his voice at me or my son. Did OOP's husband knew about his daughter? Reply, he had no clue about her. He didn't even know she had another baby. She says she didn't tell him due to him being abusive. Which, I am not her so I don't know what she went through with him except what he told me and I won't speak for her, but he has never even once raised his voice at me. But again, I'm not her so I'm not going to say she's right or wrong. OOP on the timeline of when her husband was with the ex and the possibility of the child being conceived during his relationship with his ex. Reply, they broke up December 2021 but hooked up a handful of times after. We are absolutely going to do a paternity test before anything. OOP clarifies the details regarding the relationship between her husband and son. Reply, he's not the father to my son. But he's been in his life since right before he turned 2. He hasn't said much so far and I'm not pushing anything. He just found out and he's been on the road, he's a truck driver, so I'm sure his head is just spinning. I'll talk more about it with him tomorrow. OOP responds to multiple comments about divorcing her husband. Reply, I've responded many times to this question. No, I was not going to divorce my husband because he has a child. I was not going to divorce my husband willingly period. As mentioned, many times, I was worried that he wouldn't be able to see his daughter while living in Kansas and would have to leave us to go be a father to his daughter, who deserves her father just as much as any other kid. And I said many times, I posted here to make sure I didn't ignore my husband's feelings and emotions. I have been there for him and made him the priority here. I've stated this many times. Additional information from OOP after reading comments. Edit, I want to first thank everyone for their nice and supportive comments. I wrote this when I had just found out and was thinking the worst. My brain was going 1,000 miles per hour. I wrote this to vent, because my husband doesn't need to deal with me right now, he needs to be able to focus on his feelings and thoughts. So I didn't want to bombard him. We've slept, we've talked, and everything is okay at this time. We've contacted a lawyer and are going to start the paternity process. We were able to get it in writing from his ex to him that she had no intentions on ever telling him, did not want him in her life, and that she isn't going to share her daughter with him. The lawyer we talked to said that there's definitely a chance he can have his parenting time in Kansas if he's the dad, especially since she admitted she hid the daughter from him and didn't tell him until he had already been settled in Kansas for 2 years, with a solid job, and a wife and stepchild. Again, thank you everyone who was nice to me during my time of hysteria. Hopefully this all works out for all of us. Update, we talked with and hired an attorney yesterday. She will be served more than likely this week and we will first schedule the paternity test. If it comes back that he's the father, then they will determine custody and child support. He said it should be a very quick process as Florida is a 50-50 state and it's extremely rare for a judge to even consider negotiating with either party as long as both parents seem fit. Especially with him not knowing these past 2 years and him having it in writing that she never planned to tell him out of spite, he said the judge will have little to no sympathy for anything she says. The attorney said the most likely and typically scenario he sees in situations like this are his daughter will spend 1 week in the spring, 5 weeks in the summer, and 2 weeks in the fall with us in Kansas. And every other holiday. He said there will not be any need to relocate. Relevant comments. OOP clarifies on how long she knows her husband. Reply, I have known this man for 8 years. Have spent many vacations with him and his family in Florida in the past 8 years. He's known my son since my son was 4 months old. We didn't start a romantic relationship until October of 2022. OOP on the ex's family and how old are the other kids? Reply, she has 2 other kids, totaling 3 baby daddies. And the first 2 are in Florida. I'm honestly not 100%. I've never asked. I do know that my husband left her in 2021, the kid in question was from a random hookup, and she had both kids already. So I'd say the younger one is probably 4 to 5. Commenter 1, why did she wait 2 years to tell him? She sounds like a wackadoo. First of all, if he is married to you, your marriage takes precedent. If this woman wants him in his daughter's life, that needs to be confirmed still, she can move to where you are. She doesn't get to call the shots. Sorry. If you don't want to be married to him anymore, that's your decision. But this woman doesn't get to say, jump, and have everyone respond with, how high. I'm really sorry you are going through this. People make a mess of their lives and don't stop to think about the collateral damage. It's just selfishness. You sound like you are handling this well and I wish you all the best. Prayers to you all. Reply, I absolutely want to be married to him, child or not. She has no good excuse for not telling him except, our relationship was toxic and, I don't like you. We've talked to and hired an attorney and he said if my husband is the father, long-distance parenting time will be in place and he doesn't have to move, so no worries for our marriage. She can't move because she has 2 other kids with 2 other baby daddies there. She asked me yesterday when my husband will be moving back to Florida to help raise the daughter and apologized for ruining my marriage and was shocked when I said he's not. I'm on the fence about all of this. She could be his, but it also seems like she may just be trying to get him back. Hopefully we will know soon. Has OOP seen the pictures of the girl and if there are any resemblances between her husband and the child? Reply, after seeing more pictures, the resemblance is not uncanny. I don't see much of him in her at all. I think my brain was just forcing me to believe it and that made me just think they're super similar. Update 2. So much was uncovered today and if you guys thought the situation was sus before, man you're in for a surprise. But as of this evening the case is officially open and a summons has been issued. So I'm going to stay quiet until this is over just in case. Once everything is finalized, no matter how it may be finalized, I will create a new thread with an actual final update. Thank you everyone for the kind words and advice. We shall see what happens from here. Update 3. If you saw my original post, here's the current update. If you have not, feel free to check it out for a full understanding. It's been a roller coaster the last 3 months. But hopefully, next week, we will have official answers. DNA tests were done yesterday. They said results typically take 3 to 5 business days but since they were done in 2 different states, expect closer to 5 to 8 business days. In the last 3 months, there have been a million new things come out and a million different stories. Her and my husband had talked quite a bit until shit hit the fan recently. Her and I also talked quite a bit for a while. All friendly. She would text or call us frequently and my husband and I agreed to keep peace since she could potentially be a big part of our lives for a long time. Turns out she did tell my husband she was pregnant. Prior to him and I getting together, she said the baby was probably not his. He asked if they could meet up and talk, and a couple days later, she texted him saying she had an abortion. They did not talk again after the conversation regarding her terminating the pregnancy. She admitted to me she did go to a consult at an abortion clinic, scheduled the abortion for the next day, and then decided against it but, what she told me, decided she was going to tell him she went through with it because she felt they wouldn't be able to co-parent well. The daughter has another man's last name and that man is on the birth certificate even though she has told my husband over a dozen times in the past 3 months that she has always known the daughter was my husband's. There's a ton more but I don't want to make this post 6 hours long. My husband's attorney has sent in proposed orders already in the case that paternity comes back positive. That way they can jump right into it. In his proposed orders, he put in 50-50 legal and physical custody until she starts school, after a few months of visitations to let the daughter get to know my husband, with my husband flying with child both ways, no child support if granted 50-50 physical custody, no back child support as she has said multiple times that she never intended on telling him he has a child and since there was another guy supporting the child these last 2 years, per her, he is still active in the child's life. Even though they aren't together, husband carries child on health insurance, husband's name goes on birth certificate, and daughter's last name changed to my husband's name. His attorney has also talked about filing paternity fraud charges against her since she has stated many times that she has always known, she just didn't want to co-parent with him so she chose to put a different guy on the birth certificate which caused my husband to miss out on 2 years of his, potential, child's life. If paternity comes back negative, his attorney is requesting she pays us back all legal fees due to frivolous litigation. My emotions are insane right now waiting on these results. I of course would love and accept the child if she is my husband's. She would be accepted into our family immediately and treated and loved the same as my biological child. But the ex has texted my husband about how much she still loves him, how she always will, how she just wants one-on-one time with him so they can try to reconnect. She has also texted and called me many times saying she feels bad, our marriage has to end, it isn't going to end. She's going to be a tough one to co-parent with if the child is his. But that's not the child's fault. And no matter what, we will get through it. Additional information. My husband and I tried for a baby for almost a year before seeing a fertility specialist. He did 2 semen analyses and both came back 100% sterile. Literally nothing due to a chromosome inversion. Doesn't mean it couldn't have happened, but unlikely. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, she sounds manipulative and a little off. She's just trying to get back in his life. She thought this would ruin your marriage and she's trying to weasel her way back in. There's no reason to be nice to her. If she did suspect it, she should have said something years ago. I wouldn't be speaking to her. I'd let the lawyers handle it and once you figure it out go from there. She will be very destructive if you continue to feed into her. If the child is your husband's, they don't need to communicate on their own. They need a co-parenting app and have conversations only about the child. No drama, no manipulation. Reply, we stopped all communication with her about a month ago. Apparently her and her boyfriend, the man on the birth certificate, broke up right before she called me about the child possibly being my husband, so I'm skeptical. And he did request using app clothes for communicating. My son's dad and I use it. I also think she's just trying to create drama and get him back. She also called me one night about it and told me she has to keep the papers she was served in her car so the other guy doesn't see them. So I don't think he knows about all of this. Is OOP's husband able to have children? And when was the girl conceived? Reply, as of August 2024, he cannot have biological children. Both analyses, a month apart, came back with literally 0 sperm count. Commenter 2, IVF wasn't an option because there was no sperm to use unless we used donor sperm. Also, I had a hysterectomy last month due to medical issues. So even donor sperm isn't an option. Which makes the situation 10x worse because either one. He has a daughter and missed out on the first 2 years of her life or 2. She made him think he has a biological child that he will never have and it was all just a game. Reply, the child was conceived in summer of 2022. OOP on what the ex told her about the father on the birth certificate. Reply, she also told us that she met the man on the birth certificate a month after she found out she was pregnant. So from her story, she told my husband she was pregnant, and that she aborted it, then met her BF, whatever he is the next month, then she announced her pregnancy on Facebook a month later saying, they are having a baby and tagged the man on the birth certificate. So from her story, she met this guy and then a month later announced him as father. None of it makes sense. Update. Paternity tests are back. 0% probability my husband is the father. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, I'm happy for you. Hopefully your husband is doing okay. I can see him being relieved as avoiding the drama but also maybe a little hurt that he doesn't have a child with his DNA. Before I got pregnant after failed IVF I was bitter a little bit that I wouldn't have a child of my own and only my stepson. I pray he doesn't feel that or you both can work through it with whether it's adoption together, surrogate with his sperm or counseling. Reply, he actually isn't upset at all thankfully. He has always wanted a kid with his DNA, but not with her. So he's relieved and just hopes the poor kid can figure out who her dad is one day. What did the ex say about the results? Reply, since my husband paid for all 3 tests, she didn't get the results. He sent them to her and she never replied. We will be taking her to court for attorney fees and all communication is 10,000% done. Stories number 2. Me, 22F, with my boyfriend, 24M, of 3 years, he found out that his ex is engaged and literally won't stop crying. I, 22F, met my boyfriend, 24M, 3 years ago, through some mutual friends. He was pretty guarded, and I was the one that pursued him. We were long distance, I was living in Oregon, he was living in Washington, until I moved in with him last year. My boyfriend has only had one other relationship and a hookup before me. He stopped talking to the hookup a long time ago because she was crazy, but he kept in touch with his ex until she cut contact with him around 2 years ago. They dated when he was 15 and it lasted for around 2 years, and then she dumped him because he had no self-respect. Apparently she's the reason why my boyfriend is so guarded now. I'll admit that I was really jealous of her and was glad when she cut contact with him, because she's beautiful and my boyfriend talked about her as if she had all of life's answers. This past January I woke up in the middle of the night and I heard my boyfriend crying quietly. I could tell that he was looking at his phone, and I wasn't sure whether or not to say anything since I wasn't sure if he just wanted a private moment or not. After a while he got up to go to the bathroom, so I took a peek at his phone. He was on Facebook, looking at his ex's profile. She had gotten engaged and there were pictures of the ring and everything. It's been 2 months now, and my boyfriend has been breaking down out of nowhere. I keep asking him to talk to me about it, but he won't. I told him to talk to a therapist, and he got really insulted and said that he doesn't believe in therapy. I'm unsure of what to do, since this happens at least twice a week. I love him, but he's always seemed a bit distant to me and obviously this woman is the reason why. Should I contact her and ask her if she has any insight? I'm starting to think that she must have said something to upset him like this, because he didn't seem that bothered when his ex was dating other people. TLDR, boyfriend of 3 years has been crying about twice a week since he found out that his ex-girlfriend got engaged, and won't talk to me or a therapist. I'm wondering if his ex said something specifically to set him off and thinking that I should contact her. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Right, okay. No, don't contact her. Her job is finished. If her ex still has problems with their relationship, that's his issue. Now you, Missy, do not play Miss Fix-It here. You can't fix the fact that your boyfriend is actually still in love with another woman. You can be the most perfect woman on earth, but while he still has her as his dream woman, you don't have a shit show. Honestly, and as hard as this may be, I'd talk to him about it again. And then, if there is no resolution, I'd consider moving on. You deserve someone who thinks you are the best woman on earth, not some distant ex from his high school years. Good luck, OP. And big hugs. This sucks balls. Reply. Thank you for your reply. I was insecure about my boyfriend's relationship with his ex from the start. They didn't talk that often, but they'd catch up once every few months through Skype or something. She lives on the East Coast, and when Hurricane Sandy hit he called her, texted her and messaged her on Skype despite her having cut off contact with him prior to that. I didn't even know that he still had her phone number. Is this relationship hopeless? I knew that he still had a bit of a thing for her, but I didn't know the extent of it until now. If he can't move on after all this time, I don't understand why he got into a relationship with me. Commenter 2. Sometimes we think we are more emotionally available than we actually are. And, I want you to know this, IT is not your fault. I find this happens with people who run away from their feelings and don't process grief, it always comes back and bites them in the bum. Big time. He probably didn't know it at the time when he got with you that he was like this and now it's just spiraled out of his control. I'm going to be rough. And I'm sorry. You sound like an exceptionally loving and patient girlfriend, actually. To be honest, he sounds like a bit of a jerk putting his ex-girlfriend before you emotionally. And, no. I think in the long term, you'll find it to be an uphill battle with him. I think a massive turnaround is highly unlikely if he is this bad 3 years into your relationship. 3 years is a lot to give up on, I know. But think about it, wouldn't you rather be with someone who thinks you are the most amazing woman in the world? Reply. 3 years is a lot to give up on, I know. But think about it, wouldn't you rather be with someone who thinks you are the most amazing woman in the world? I love him, from the moment I saw him I knew that I wanted to be with him. He's incredibly smart and charming. But you're right, I've always felt insignificant in comparison to his ex and I don't think that I realized quite how much. If I think about it though, there were clues that I didn't pick up on. When we first started dating, I told him at some point that he didn't seem to want to open up to me, and he told me that it was because his ex had taught him not to become too vulnerable. I thought that this would pass as we got more serious about each other, and he did open up a bit more, but whenever he caught up with his ex he'd be distant with me again for a while. I don't know why his ex cut off contact with him, but after she did, he did seem more invested in our relationship and so I had hope for us. He was the one that asked if I wanted to move in with him. But now this happened, and he barely wants to talk to me. Update. It's over, I think. I called my dad and asked him to help me move back home. These last 2 days have been really emotional. My boyfriend was gone all day yesterday, he was gone when I woke up, that's fine, I assumed he went to work early, but he still wasn't home when I went to bed. I texted him once when I woke up to say good morning, and twice at night, one asking if he was coming home for dinner, and another asking if he was alright. I also tried calling his cell, but he didn't pick up. I thought that I deserved some answers, so I decided to snoop, something that I've done once before, when I was feeling insecure about his relationship with his ex. Well, on his laptop hidden in a bunch of subfolders was an MS document with his ex's name. I read it, and I'm assuming that he just saved the last conversation that he had with her, right before she cut contact with him. It started out normally, but then he asked how her relationship with her, now fiancé, boyfriend was going. She said that it was good, and that she was happy. And then it got weird, because he said something like, really? Are you sure? She said yes and said that was a weird question, and he said, I don't know, I don't believe that you're that happy. I don't remember everything exactly because my head was spinning, but he basically told her that her fiancé, then boyfriend, will never treat her as well as he did, and that they've known each other X number of years and managed to stay friends after their breakup, that they've helped each other grow as people and that she should really give him another chance. He said that he's waited for her all these years and that he loves her and always believed they'd wind up together. This was all while he was with me. She called him an asshole and told him that he had a lot of balls to say all that to her when she told him a long time ago that they're only ever going to be friends, and that he's an even bigger asshole for doing this while they were both in relationships. She told him to go to hell and to break up with me for my sake, because I deserve better. That's not even the worst part. My boyfriend woke me up this morning by calling my cell and telling me to come to the kitchen. He said that he made breakfast. So I go to the kitchen getting ready for a fight. He and I never fight, but I am so goddamned hurt, and he made what honestly looked like an amazing breakfast, with a ring box in the middle of the table. He told me to open it. I did. He said something like these last 3 years with me has been an adventure and he hopes to keep making new adventures with me. I guess around this time I snap out of whatever haze I've been in and I exploded. I demanded to know where he was all day yesterday, why he wouldn't contact me, why he's been crying over his ex for the last 3 months, everything. He got mad at me for being mad. He told me that I should be happy because he was proposing, and wasn't that what I wanted? I asked him why, when it's so obvious that he'd rather be with his ex. He told me that she's obviously moved on so it's time for him to move on too. I've never been so angry in my life. I've been so incredibly patient with this man and done my best to be understanding of his situation. I've literally given him all that I had, but I'm not going to get married to him just to be his consolation prize. It's so ironic because had he proposed 4+ months earlier, I would have been ecstatic. Now it just broke our relationship. So yeah, I called my dad, crying, and he's on his way to help me move back in with him and my mom. That's it. I'm a wreck, but I think it's just because everything wrong and twisted in this relationship is hitting me and it took so long for me to understand. And my ex is just sitting on the couch with his laptop. Thank you guys so much for helping me see how unfair this whole relationship was. I read every one of your comments, even if I didn't get a chance to respond to them all. TLDR, he proposed because his ex moved on, so he wanted to move on too. I'm moving back home with my parents because whenever I get married, I want to be that man's first choice. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. He made a mistake. People have made bigger mistakes before and overcome it. He was putting you number one by proposing to you. You said you had 3 years of a happy relationship together before this. Although he had a temporary lapse in judgment, he still wants you. You are looking for an incredibly perfect fairy tale where everything plays out exactly like you wanted it. After you break up, you'll start to realize all the things he did to say and show he loved you, things that should trump this revelation. Sounds like things are your way or the highway. Hopefully if another man loves you, he'll be willing to put up with that. Reply. I thought that my relationship was a happy one, yes. But I didn't know that my ex was declaring his love for his ex-girlfriend and trying to win her back while he was still with me. Nor did I know that once she blocked him from Facebook, he was logging into my account to keep tabs on her. If you honestly believe that someone that's been crying for 3 months over an ex's engagement really wanted to be with me, you're in the minority. And judging by the fact that he had bought the ring the day before he proposed, he really hadn't been planned it at all. I'm astounded by your post, honestly. Update 2. First, I want to thank everyone that commented on my last post. I really took your comments to heart and all of the support means the world to me. I took a break from Reddit but logged in today to find a few PMs asking for another update, so here goes. My ex went more or less crazy after I moved back home. I blocked him from essentially everything, changed all of my passwords and deactivated my Facebook, so he had no way of reaching me aside from literally driving to my parents' house to see me. Apparently he started sending messages to my friends, some of them are mutual friends, asking to use their Skype accounts to talk to me. He told them that I stole some things from him when I moved out, and he wanted them back. I got a few phone calls from my friends asking me about this. They told me that they knew that I didn't steal anything from him because that's not like me at all, but they wanted to know why he was so desperate to contact me. I wasn't ready to tell the whole story, honestly. I didn't think anyone would believe me, so I told them that I didn't know what was going on, but asked them to not give them their Skype accounts by any means. A few days after that, the phone calls started. All from a few different numbers that I didn't recognize. I didn't pick any of them up, but one day I'd have about 20 missed calls from one number, then another 20 plus from a different number. I had to set my phone to only allow calls from specific numbers, otherwise it would go straight to my voicemail. Even if he couldn't reach me, he succeeded in making me feel pretty isolated. After the 5th day of the phone calls, I broke down and told my mom everything that happened. She didn't say much, she mostly let me talk. Afterwards she told me that I made the right decision but that there's absolutely no reason why I should be going through this alone. She said that she didn't want to push me to tell her what happened until I was ready, but that the best thing that I could be doing right now is spending time with people that love and support me. So after going with me to get my phone number changed, she encouraged me to start calling my friends and telling them what happened, and to just hang out with them more in general. I had it stuck in my head that everyone would side with my ex and tell me that I made a terrible mistake, that his intentions were good, and I blew things out of proportion by insinuating that he only proposed because his ex-girlfriend got engaged. But I was actually overwhelmed by my friends' responses. Apparently my ex had been telling everyone that we broke up because I had major jealousy issues over his ex, but once they heard my side of the story, I was actually shocked by how many of them said that it made sense. They've all told me that I've done the right thing and that they'd back me up no matter what. I just felt this huge sense of relief and have been making an effort to go out more. I will be honest, though. There are times where I wonder if I was wrong. Sometimes I think that maybe my ex had been grieving over his old relationship and proposing to me was his way of starting over. Sometimes I think that I turned down the only marriage proposal that I'll ever get. And sometimes I think that maybe I should have accepted, because I loved him, and you don't often find people that you truly love. But then on the days that I'm feeling wiser, I remind myself of how bizarre our last few weeks together were, how I always knew deep down that I was second best for him, and how he's been behaving since we broke up. I've never seen him so unstable. He was always so calm and logical, so this is completely new to me. I know deep down that I did the right thing, but sometimes what you know in your head and feel in your heart are so completely different. So, that's basically it. I'm just going through the motions, and I'm going to make an appointment with a therapist. I wish that I had something more profound to update you guys with, some added wisdom, but I don't. My best advice for anyone going through something similar is what my mom told me: surround yourself with people that love and support you. TLDR, ex-boyfriend went batshit crazy trying to contact me. I isolated myself because I thought everyone would side with him, but after some coaxing, I told my mom and friends my side of the story and they believe me. I go back and forth between thinking that I did the right thing to thinking I did the wrong thing, but I've managed to maintain NC and am making an appointment to see a therapist. Final update. Hello, Reddit. I just wanted to update you guys on some things that have happened. I also wanted to apologize for not responding to any of the comments in my last post. I wasn't in a great place at the time, and wasn't feeling up to it. But I did read each of your responses, and I truly appreciate those who took the time to comment. First, my ex mailed me the engagement ring that he bought shortly after my last update. I didn't know what to do with it. I wasn't sure if the ring was what he had been claiming that I stole. I also felt weird about mailing it back, because what if he claimed that he never got it? So my dad volunteered to personally deliver the ring back to him. I don't know if anything was said when my dad brought it back, and I never asked. Second, I heard from some friends that 2 weeks ago, my ex bought a ticket and flew to NYC to try and talk to his ex. Somehow he found out the name of the company that she worked for, looked up its location, and waited in front of the building all day. I have no idea what happened, but apparently there aren't any signs of her coming back, so I'm assuming that it didn't go very well. I can't believe that he did that. And I can't believe that I dated someone that was that crazy for 3 years. But I suppose it helps every time that I hear about something like this, because it reinforces the fact that I did the right thing. I met with 2 therapists. I wasn't a huge fan of the first one. Every time that I said something, he'd ask, "And how do you feel about that?" No feedback or suggestions whatsoever. At the end he suggested that I was depressed and might want to consider a few different medications. I don't intend on seeing that guy again. I met the second one last week though, and I liked her a lot. She told me that she doesn't think that I need to see her regularly, but to feel free to make appointments whenever I'm feeling especially down or stressed, so I think I'll do that. A few people asked why I wanted to see a therapist in my last post because I seemed to be doing the right things. Well, the problem was that even though I knew I was doing the right thing, I didn't necessarily feel that they were right. I still doubted myself, and I felt like a different person than I used to be. Prior to this mess I was always very optimistic and happy in general. I always tried to make the best of things. But at the time of my last post, I felt down, and even though I was making an effort to see friends, I wasn't really enjoying it. Anyway, this brings me to where I am now. I started a paid internship, with the chance of getting hired full-time, almost a month ago, and I love it. I love the people, the work itself, and the fact that I'm getting back into a routine. And I'm a little embarrassed to say that I'm attracted to the guy that hired me, who's about my age. There's nothing going on, and I'm definitely not ready or willing to be in a relationship. It's simply the fact that he is the nicest, best-mannered person that I've ever met. He's always positive, polite and smiling, so it's impossible not to be in a good mood around him. So it's not that I think my next relationship should be with him, or that I have feelings for him. It's just that I've realized that the type of person that I should be looking for is someone that makes me feel good, just by being around them. I don't give much thought to my ex anymore. It's amazing how much life changes over the course of a few months, but I think that everything is turning out for the best. TLDR, ex-boyfriend mailed me my ring, flew to NYC to try and talk to his ex, and nothing came of it. In the meantime, life is looking up for me. I found a therapist that I like, I have a paid internship, and I met the kind of guy that I should be looking for, whenever I feel ready for another relationship. Stories number 3. AITA for not telling my fiancé that my late partner was a man. I, 29M, lost my fiancé 4 years ago in a car accident. He and I were both 25 at the time and had been together since we were 19. If soulmates are real, he was mine. He was stubborn, he preferred a way earlier bedtime than I did, and was a major homebody, and I loved all of it. He would stay up with me until he was sure I fell asleep, and weekly movie theater outings, planned by him, became a thing like a month into us meeting. I am a fundamentally different person both because I met him and because of my grief. I was shown what real love and effort and care feels like. I also don't talk about him. I go to therapy once a week. Otherwise, it's silence on that topic from me. He lives on in me in the ways I try to emulate him. I practice the patience he had that I always struggle to find. I go after career-related opportunities that scare me because I know he would encourage me to. Sometimes I let myself stay in bed because I know he'd be gentle with me and let me do that too. But I don't talk about him, and I probably never will. I'll make the occasional, "Oh, X would have loved this," comment when I'm with friends who knew him well. With strangers, nothing. My friends and family respect that, as well. I'm engaged again. My fiancé, 31F, obviously knows I was engaged before. I pretty much told her my last partner passed away and I don't talk about it. I don't use social media in really any capacity anymore, but she happened to stumble upon an old Instagram profile of mine recently and saw him heavily featured. This led to her accusing me of purposefully keeping this from her. I don't really see why his gender matters, and I told her so. She said I've broken her trust. Times like these are when I long for the life I was living before. But grief fucked up my brain, so I'm not sure if I'm being insensitive. Edit, she knew I am bisexual. The only thing she didn't know was that my fiancé was a man. Comments. Commenter 1. Here's my perspective as a widow. You need to talk to your therapist about this. Not Reddit. Most people have no idea what it's like to lose so much and just how much that loss shapes you. But also, it's concerning to me that he sounds like such a big part of your internal life, but you've never even mentioned him with your current partner. Before you get married, you need to dig into why you've compartmentalized this to such an intense degree. Why are you hiding him? What are you afraid of? If I'm being generous, I think seeing that your late fiancé was a man shocked your fiancé into realizing that she knows absolutely nothing about this major part of you. Commenter 2. This is what I thought of. OP's current fiancé may be concerned that she doesn't know who she's marrying. Which could be fair because it sounds like OP may not know who he is right now. Good stuff to work through. Commenter 3. That's spot on. It's not just about the past, but how it shapes the present. Understanding that is crucial for both OP and his fiancé. Commenter 4. Based on how you describe your relationship with your ex, and fail to say anything about your current fiancé, I am not certain you are ready to be married to her, or anyone for that matter right now. You still seem to be in your past relationship more than your current one. Perhaps some counseling will help you move into a better place. Commenter 5. They also grouped their current fiancé with strangers when it comes to talking about his previous partner engagement and said, I long for the life I was living before. Commenter 6. The new fiancé is nothing but a stranger who doesn't deserve to know about his previous partner. Yes, I'll call that a betrayal, and if she were my friend, I wouldn't recommend her to get married to OP. Update. I figured I'd go ahead and post an update before I return to my all-lurk, no post-comment Reddit life. Yesterday, I had an emergency therapy session because I was spiraling and didn't feel prepared to tackle the upcoming conversation with my fiancé without one. It was hard but necessary as I was finally honest about just how much I was compartmentalizing my grief. It laid the foundation for where I'd like to go moving forward. Now I have to put in the legwork. The few hours between my therapy appointment and my fiancé getting off work was evidence of just how avoidant I've become. It was a conversation we needed, but definitely not one I wanted. When we finally sat down to talk, I asked her to start us off by telling me exactly what was bothering her about the whole situation. She said because I had come out to her in a casual way, the way I come out to anyone, by mentioning it early on when it seems natural to bring up, she didn't realize how serious I was and this made her look at me differently. She apologized for that and suggested that if I told her more about him now, it might be an easier pill for her to swallow. I tried, but there was this knot in my stomach the entire time I tried to pick a place to start. And maybe this is me being cruel, not giving her the benefit of the doubt, but it just didn't feel right. She hadn't come and said, I was shocked because I realized how little I know about this time in your life. Would you be open to talking about it now? Instead it felt like, tell me what you saw in him so I can attempt to rationalize your orientation. I told her I needed some time, so she went to stay elsewhere for the weekend. A longtime good friend of mine came over this morning. I think the combination of anonymously talking more openly about my partner here as well as being more open with my therapist helped remind me of how joyous and cathartic it could be. I don't know the exact catalyst, but I do know I spilled my guts. We talked for hours about things I haven't told anyone in years. I expressed how nervous I was about possibly living alone again and I was told that I didn't ever have to worry about that an SOS text message would be all it took for me to have company if I needed it. Same goes for all my friends and family. I'm so lucky I have an incredible support system. 5 minutes into that hours-long conversation, I already knew. The trust, security, and love I felt made room for this newfound openness. The absence of any one of those marks a relationship DOA, and is why I felt physically ill trying to share his memory with her. I truly wish her the best. I think going our separate ways will be good for both of us. We weren't getting what we needed from each other. She's supposed to be coming back tomorrow, so we'll have the talk then. I have lots of work to do but for tonight, I get to be reminded of what safety feels like. Edit. Please see this comment where I elaborate on the conversation she and I had. There seems to be this misunderstanding where I blame her for everything because she didn't perfectly respond to the situation. Two things can be true, I wasn't open, I am largely accountable for the problems in this relationship and I never should have entered it if I wasn't ready. She also said ignorant things. I'm not angry about it and it's certainly not the sole reason we're breaking up. It's just another reason, on the pile of reasons why this isn't sustainable. Me still not feeling comfortable enough to share with her equals me blaming her for everything, or even the majority. It was just the final nail in the coffin between maybe we can make this work with a lot of effort and this needs to end now. Comments. Commenter 1. It sounds as if you are not completely over the death of your fiancé. I hope someday you are able to love again but that day has clearly not come yet. Commenter 2. I could even tell that from his original post from the paragraphs he spent talking about the original fiancé in great, loving detail and how he talks more about not wanting to be alone more than losing his new fiancé. He doesn't seem to love the new fiancé. Commenter 3. We still don't know anything about her personality either. Commenter 4. Right? The only thing we have is his admitted judgmental interpretation of something he has twisted that he has said as well as his playing the victim acting like she's not a safe person, without a single description of why. Commenter 5. You can do as you like but I also don't think you gave room for her feelings. You assumed how she felt about your orientation instead of considering concerns she may have about her not being what you want to because she is not male and also not the former love of your life. Marriage is a big deal for both parties involved. In your previous post, it seemed like you already decided she wasn't going to be accepting, so you just didn't want to tell her. This post, you make assumptions about her not being accepting when from an outsider's POV it just seems like she's trying to understand probably multiple things like why you didn't tell her before now, if you don't trust her, if you will be okay being monogamous with her as a female and being happy for the long run. Those are all valid concerns, even heterosexual relationships have, especially after their partner sits them down and makes a big deal out of any conversation they deem scary. I do think you are not compatible at this point, but I think part of it is because you are not ready to move on, and part of it is because of how you handled this situation. Laying the blame solely on her isn't really reality. Sorry. Update. A quick TLDR, my, at the time, fiancé found out I was previously engaged to a man. She had a very negative reaction despite already knowing I was bisexual. I ultimately decided to end the engagement. I felt unsupported, distrustful of her, and I didn't want to be in a relationship with someone who discredited and disregarded my sexuality. It's been 7 months. It feels like a lifetime ago. I was still in such a fog back then. I'm not sure if this update is even allowed since the issue has technically already been resolved. The question was AITA for not telling her about my late partner's gender and now that relationship is over. The conflict doesn't exist anymore. She and I haven't spoken and I don't ever want to again. That entire relationship was a huge mistake from start to finish. I just wanted to drop in and say I'm seeing someone. We've been officially dating for about a month. He knew me from before my partner passed and I feel like I'm slowly making progress in finding that person again. I spent a long time trying to emulate my late partner as a way of honoring him. I respect and love him so much, present tense, and I wanted to encapsulate the way he was. My boyfriend likes to remind me that he wouldn't want me to be him. He would want me to be me. That's been so helpful, along with lots of therapy. And the national emergency mentioned at the end of this post, order has been restored, the troops can stand down, etc. Edit. I received a ton of understanding and compassionate comments that helped me a lot after my story was posted on the Best of Redditor Update subreddit. It made me feel comfortable and hope that posting here again would be welcomed and give people a conclusion to the journey. It also made me feel less crazy since I was receiving a litany of ignorant comments relating to my sexuality. Unfortunately, this sub's primary response remains the same. I can't do biphobia round 3 again. It was rough enough the first 2 times. I'm not a glutton for punishment. Comments. Commenter 1. I spent a long time trying to emulate my late partner as a way of honoring him. I respect and love him so much, present tense, and I wanted to encapsulate the way he was. Does your current partner fully understand this? Reply, yes. My current partner has known me, and knew my late partner, for a long time. He's the friend I mentioned in my first update. He fully understands the journey I've been on because he's been right there with me for most of it. Our relationship was platonic but has now blossomed into something really beautiful and healing. Commenter 2. So being honest with one partner and not the other, somehow doesn't make you the AH in your own mind? Wow. Commenter 3. Art room again. Reply, I'm familiar with the post. It's about a man who leaves his wife for a man, right? What does that have to do with me? I was single for months before I started a new relationship. I was also single for years prior to starting a relationship with my ex-fiancée. I never left anyone for someone else. I was open with my ex about my sexuality from the very beginning. What's the overlap here? That I also like men. Stories number 4. I, 29M, think that my girlfriend, 26F, is only with me because she can't be with her best friend, 26M. Should I just end the relationship? I've been with my girlfriend Jordan for a little over 2 years, we live together and we have 2 cats. Up until this weekend I genuinely thought everything was perfect in our relationship, which I know is what everyone says in these posts, but I really was thinking that I was going to ask her to marry me sometime in the next year. We don't ever get into arguments, Jordan is very sweet and easygoing and normally we just mesh well on everything. Honestly, if everything in our relationship hadn't been so good up until now I probably would have just broken up with her this weekend. But because things have truly been so perfect I'm not sure if maybe I'm jumping to the wrong conclusion about what to do because my feelings got hurt. The other person who's important in this story is Jordan's friend Mark. She's known Mark for their whole lives because they both grew up in the same small religious community. Jordan isn't part of that religion anymore, she decided to leave the church when she was I think 19 and moved to the state that we live in now. Mark still is in the religion and apparently takes it really seriously, I'm told he now works for the church back in Jordan's hometown. Also as far as I know Mark is the only person from the religious community that Jordan still talks to besides her parents, which I'm mentioning because I now think it could be a red flag. So on Saturday I met Mark for the first time because he was in our city and Jordan wanted us all to have dinner together. At this point I want to say, I will admit that when we were first dating and I found out that Jordan had a best friend, who was a guy I didn't really like it, especially because it seemed like they were on FaceTime with each other a lot. But since it was a childhood friend and they mostly didn't see each other in person, I just trusted Jordan that Mark was only a friend and didn't let it bother me and eventually I got over it. So when we were going to dinner, I wasn't jealous or suspicious of Mark at all. If anything I was somewhat excited to finally be meeting him since I've been hearing about him for 2 years. But then the way Jordan and Mark acted at dinner is what convinced me that there's something going on there other than just being best friends. I honestly don't even know how to describe it except to say that I've never seen 2 people act more obviously like they were in love with each other. They literally would not stop touching each other, they were constantly touching each other's arms and shoulders and at some points they were actually even holding hands. They completely left me out of the conversation and were laughing about inside jokes, and every time they'd laugh they'd do this thing where they put their foreheads together or that was when they'd be holding hands. And then also they were just looking at each other in a way that I didn't feel comfortable with at all, it was honestly even worse than the touching. It just wasn't how anyone would look at somebody they're supposedly just friends with. I'm 100% sure that every stranger looking at our table thought that Jordan and Mark were the couple and that I was her brother or something. I felt like a third wheel the whole time and Jordan didn't even notice how awkward she was making it for me because she was way too focused on Mark and all the attention she was getting from him. And that's really not like Jordan at all, Usually she's a lot more considerate and would notice immediately if I wasn't having a good time or if she was accidentally being rude and excluding someone at the table. So it was genuinely really jarring to be sitting there with her and Mark and basically feeling like I didn't know my girlfriend at all. It was like he turned her into a completely different person who didn't even care that I was alive. So finally at one point when Jordan got up to go to the bathroom I just said to Mark, "So are you into my girl or what's going on here?" Mark, "Nothing's going on at all. That ship sailed a long time ago." Me, "What does that mean? Did you guys date at some point?" Mark, "No, we never did. And then when she left the church, we both knew it meant that we were never going to. And we've accepted being in each other's lives as friends. There's nothing else going on at all." Me, "That makes it sound like the only reason you're not together is because she left the church." And all Mark did was shrug. Me, "Well, what if she came back to the church? Would you marry her?" Mark, "Oh, she's not going to do that. You might as well ask what would happen if a bicycle had 6 tires. And so then when Jordan came back to the table, Mark said to her, "OP wants to know if we'd be married if you weren't a godless heathen." Jordan, "Why, did you two call your mom while I was gone?" And then she and Mark both just laughed about it and changed the subject. So because of dinner and that conversation and everything else that I've written about in this post, I really feel like Jordan and Mark are in love with each other and not just best friends, like they say, and the only reason they aren't together is because they can't compromise about their religion. I think Jordan thinks that because she's okay with that decision, she expects me to be okay with being her second choice, and in the meantime she's actually secretly wanting to be with Mark. So that makes me think that I should probably obviously just have self-respect and break up with her, because I shouldn't be in a relationship with someone who would rather be with somebody else. But then the problem for me is that our relationship has been so perfect and Jordan has always treated me so well except for this one night. The only time she's ever acted like this was on the one occasion that Mark was around in person. Normally even when she's talking to him all the time she's never made me feel this way. So on the one hand I'm wondering if maybe it doesn't matter what Jordan's feelings are for Mark, as long as he isn't going to be around it doesn't actually seem to affect our relationship. So maybe I just need to cool off and go back to trusting her that they are indeed only friends even if it seems to be true that they have complicated feelings for each other. Or should I just end things? Update: I talked to Jordan on Wednesday night. The TLDR update to the situation is that I didn't break up with her. After we talked about everything I feel like that would be too much of an overreaction for what's actually going on. I do still think I was right to be upset about what I saw happening at dinner on Saturday and Jordan didn't disagree with me about that, but I think I did jump to the wrong conclusion that it meant that she secretly actually wanted to be with Mark more than she wants to be with me. Now that we've talked it out I don't think there's a reason to end what's otherwise the best relationship I've ever had, and I'm glad that I didn't just immediately trust my instincts because there was more going on with the situation that I didn't really understand that Jordan has since told me, and now I do feel like she can be given some grace in this situation assuming nothing like this ever happens again. So thanks for the advice, especially for everyone who told me to just talk to her before I made a big decision. So when we talked I decided to take the main piece of advice that I got from everyone and start by telling Jordan that my feelings were hurt by the way she treated me at dinner with Mark, and then see how the conversation went from there. It turned into a very long talk so I don't want to try to remember exact quotes and get them wrong, but here are the important things. I repeated to Jordan some of what I wrote in the post and said that I felt excluded by her and Mark, especially because they were being overly touchy-feely with each other to the point where it made me uncomfortable. Jordan seemed surprised, like she didn't even notice that she and Mark were touching each other that much, but then she thought about it and said that I was right and apologized. She said that Mark is always really touchy with everybody and not just her, I asked, and so she didn't even think about it, but that she wished I would have said something at the time because she didn't realize they were being that obnoxious. I said that was part of what bothered me, because I thought that normally she would have noticed something like that, but she was acting so different around Mark and not paying any attention to anything else including how I was feeling that it was honestly just made me question which one of us she cared about more, or if she cared about him as more than just a friend. Jordan apologized more and said that she could understand why it would look that way to me, but that she loves me and cares more about me than anyone else in the world and that she didn't mean to act like that or make me feel that way. She said that she was trying to not make Mark feel like a third wheel because of being a single guy out with a couple, but obviously it backfired and just made me feel like the third wheel instead, which wasn't what she wanted to do either. After that Jordan explained a lot to me about her history with Mark, and basically as she explained it she said that she fully admits she cares about him as more than just a normal friend, but she says that it's not in a romantic way. She said that's why she always specifically refers to him as her best friend, and not just as her friend, and said that she would use the phrase, "he's like my brother," if it weren't for the fact that she once had an actual brother, RIP, so she won't use that phrasing for anyone else. According to Jordan, the main thing that happened to make her and Mark so close was that when she was 17 she tried to kill herself, and that was actually when everyone else in the community stopped talking to her and Mark was the only person who didn't. For the next couple of years until she moved he was literally her only friend, and she said that he checked on her every single day to make sure she stayed alive, which is also when they got into the habit of talking on the phone so much. And also apparently during this time Mark's parents thought they were dating and made a big deal about how they shouldn't be, and that's why she made that remark during dinner. Apparently calling Jordan a godless heathen is something that Mark's mom said. I did tell Jordan that Mark basically said to me that he thought the two of them would be married if she had stayed in the church, and I asked her if she thinks that maybe Mark is in love with her even if she doesn't feel the same way. She said definitely not, and I don't think she was being dishonest. I really don't agree with her, but I think she genuinely believes that Mark isn't into her in any way apart from friendship. Her opinion of the situation is that she also thinks she and Mark would eventually have gotten married if she had never left the church or moved, but from her perspective it would have been more because of peer pressure than anything else, and she doesn't think it would necessarily have been a good thing. She thinks Mark was just being honest about that, and that possibly from his perspective he thinks he and Jordan would have made a good couple, but he's probably thinking that because he's just assuming that in that scenario she'd be the perfect church wife, so there's no reason why they wouldn't be a good couple. But then the big thing that happened at the end of the conversation is that Jordan told me that Mark is coming back through our city on his way home from this trip, and so she was going to invite him to hang out with the two of us again, but she said that if I'm going to be uncomfortable with him around then she won't ask him. A lot of people were saying that if she didn't offer to cut contact with him or to cut down on contact with him it meant that she valued him over me, so the fact that she brought up on her own that she wouldn't invite him to dinner with us again because I didn't like it seemed like a really good sign to me. Based on everything else that she said, I do understand why she didn't offer to totally stop being friends with him, and I wouldn't expect her to after what she told me about what happened when she was a teenager. So now I'm deciding to take Jordan's word for it that although she and Mark are weirdly close, it's for the reasons that she explained to me and not because she's in love with him. I think the fact that she was immediately apologetic instead of defensive was good, and the way she explained everything did make sense to me. I don't necessarily trust Mark, but I do think I can trust Jordan. But I am going to watch and see if it seems like she's still talking to him as much as she used to, or if anything changes or sounds different. I'm not going to be controlling and tell her that she can't talk to him or that she has to talk to him less, but I want to see if me talking to her about all of this causes her to act any differently at all. I'm kind of thinking she might realize on her own that the way Mark acts towards her actually does seem like he likes her as more than a friend now that I've brought it up, but I don't know. It could be that things just go back to exactly the way they were before, and I won't know if anything has actually changed until the next time Mark is around in person, but I don't think that's something I should keep worrying about before it happens. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. OP. Did she acknowledge that the touching by her was inappropriate? I do not see how she could not have recognized how touchy they were and her lack of physical touch with you. Like many others have said, I am not sure Jordan was being completely honest with you. Did you ask her how she would have felt in a reverse situation? If the three of you meet again, you might want to think about excusing yourself to go to the bathroom or something during the meal and instead hide and film their interaction while you are gone. See if Jordan changes how she interacts when you are not there. I say to capture it on your phone because then you have it to show her if you break up. If she interacts appropriately while you are gone, then she may have gotten the message. She should also start limiting her interactions with him, phone, text, because that relationship is not healthy and so should have to deal with that if you two get married. It needs to be dealt with now. Reply. She did acknowledge that all the touching was inappropriate, yes. When she actually thought back on how much they were doing it and how over the top it was, she was embarrassed and realized she shouldn't have started acting like that just because Mark makes it seem normal. I didn't ask her how she'd feel in the reverse situation because it seemed like she got it immediately as soon as I told her how it made me feel. If the three of us are ever together again, I'll definitely be watching everything, but I don't think there's a chance of that happening for a while. New update. I apologize if this isn't right. I've never tried to post to my profile on here before, but a lot of people wanted an update and I don't think I'm allowed to post to the original subreddit. The situation seems pretty resolved now, after Mike and Jordan had an argument over everything and are no longer friends. What happened was that after Jordan told Mark we weren't available to hang out when he came back through our city, he blamed me, saying that he could tell Jordan was only saying no to hanging out because I had a problem with him. Jordan admitted that this was part of the reason and told Mark that she wanted a bit of space from him because she was trying to be respectful of our relationship. Mark got really offended and kept asking Jordan to explain why him being around was disrespectful to our relationship and kept pretending not to understand her answers, and then eventually during the conversation he started trying to guilt Jordan into making time for him and told her that she's become a worse person over the years because the Jordan he knew would never blow him off. That upset Jordan a lot because she took it as Mark saying that she was a bad person since she left the church, and she started crying and she ended up hanging up on him. Jordan and I talked a lot afterwards. I told her that I thought Mark was toxic because anyone else would have been understanding of what she said. Jordan said that a lot of what he said during the conversation reminded her of being in the church. She said that she couldn't explain it except that it was his attitude when he tried to argue with her, but that it made her not really want to talk to him even outside of anything to do with our relationship. Mark texted Jordan the day after asking if she really wasn't going to come see him and if she was going to pick some boyfriend over her only friend after he's been there for her through everything. Jordan texted Mark back explaining her point again and saying that their friendship couldn't be the same anymore as it used to be now that she was with someone and that he should understand that. Mark texted Jordan that he couldn't believe she'd treat her best friend like that. Jordan tried to text Mark saying that a friend wouldn't be guilt-tripping her, but it turned out that he had blocked her number. After that, Jordan was feeling like she'd done something wrong and was too mean to Mark, but she and I talked about it again and she realized that she was right to not want to be friends with Mark if he's going to treat her like she owes him loyalty. Jordan then blocked him back, including on all her socials, so that if later he changes his mind and tries to apologize she can ignore him. A couple of weeks went by and while I'll admit I was pretty happy about not hearing from Mark, Jordan was really bummed about how everything ended. She said that although she saw now that Mark isn't a good person to have in her life because of his reaction to her trying to set a boundary, she still felt sad and abandoned, and it was bringing back a lot of the same feelings as when she was a teenager and her other church friends all turned their backs on her. So at this point I asked her if she's ever thought about going to therapy for religious trauma, and she said she'd gone for a few months when she first left the church, but the therapist wasn't really helpful. I suggested that maybe it would be a good idea to try again with a better therapist because it sounds like all this stuff still bothers her a lot, and Jordan agreed with me and decided to make an appointment. She's had a couple of therapy sessions that she says so far are good, but I don't really ask her for any details on what they talk about, so I can't really update on that part of the situation. Stories number 5. My younger brothers, 19M, friend, 20M, sneaked into my room while everyone was asleep. So this morning, while I 24F was asleep, my younger brother's friend, who lives in the same building and whom I've known since childhood, sneaked into our house, and then into my room, while everyone was asleep except for my mom, who had gone for a morning walk, so the main door was unlocked. He quietly reached for my left hand and tried to unlock my phone using my fingerprint. Luckily, that's when I felt someone holding my hand and woke up. At first, I thought it was my brother, so without thinking much, I asked, "What do you want?" He immediately pulled away and ran out of the room. I was completely shocked to see him in my room inside our home at that hour, when everyone was still asleep. I asked him what was going on, and he just said he came to see my brother. I was still trying to process everything. It felt really creepy. Like, why would he sneak into my room that early in the morning? The creepiest part was, I didn't even know how long he had been in my room or when exactly he sneaked in. I didn't overthink it at the time and just locked my door. I considered telling his parents about it, but then again, it's not like I see him as a pervert or anything. He's never seemed like that. So instead, I went and woke up my brother and told him everything. He told me that his friend has been going through depression. I don't know, do people with depression normally do stuff like this? When I told my brother, he actually got really angry and wanted to confront him right away, but I was the one who stopped him. I thought maybe there was some reason behind why he did what he did. My brother also told me this wasn't the first time he tried sneaking into our house. Apparently, my mom had once caught him early in the morning trying to open our main door, but he failed. She found it weird too, especially since he could have just rung the bell but didn't. Later, I told my mom what had happened, and she immediately went to their place to confront him and let his family know what he did. My parents are super protective when it comes to their kids. But what shocked me the most was that he told his parents a completely different version of the story. My mom explained everything exactly how it happened, and his response was, he didn't know it was me in the bed. He thought it was my brother. When my mom asked why he didn't just call out my brother's name, he said he didn't want to wake him up. Now that was creepy. Even my mom felt the same. It was 7 in the morning. How the hell did he not see my face when I could clearly see his the moment I opened my eyes? He's been coming to our place since he was a kid. He knows which room belongs to who. That just made the whole thing even more unsettling. P.S. I just added some more details to clarify because it seems like some people are assuming my brother was involved or didn't react the way he should have. But honestly, the moment I told him what happened, he got really angry and wanted to confront his friend on the spot. It wasn't him who stayed quiet, it was me who stopped him. Our families have known each other for years, and I've literally seen his friend grow up. I've never seen him do anything like this before, not even once until today. That's the only reason I held my brother back. I thought maybe there was some deeper reason behind why he acted that way. But then I told my mom about the whole incident later. Stories number 6. I'm divorcing my wife of 17 years because of an old FWB of hers. 1 month ago, I, 43M, found out that my wife's, 41F, male best friend, 40M, was actually her former FWB, and that has enraged me to no end. Not just because they had that kind of past, but because she kept it a secret from me for all these years. To make matters worse, my sister, 40F, who is also my wife's best friend, knew about it and never told me. When we started dating 18 years ago, we agreed to cut all ties with our exes. Now I've learned that she's been lying to me about that for years. After finding out last month, I spoke to a lawyer and told my wife we were getting a divorce. Nothing she says or does now will change that. I also took a DNA test for my daughter, 16F, and twin boys, 12M, and have gone no contact with my sister. Some might say I'm taking things too far, especially with the DNA test, but there's a reason for it. Her FWB and I look strikingly similar, we're both 6 feet tall, have blonde hair, and blue eyes. Until now, I never questioned whether my kids were mine, but after learning about her past with him, I can't help but feel paranoid. On top of that, her FWB never got married because he claimed to have a free soul. It makes me feel like she just settled for me, and if he had ever decided he wanted marriage, she would have left me in an instant. The only silver lining in all of this is that the house we live in is in my name. I inherited it from my grandpa before we got married. For now, I've kicked my wife out of the house and taken her to her parents' place, where I told them exactly why we're getting divorced. I also told my kids because I believe they're old enough to know the truth. Since then, my wife has been calling me constantly, crying and swearing that they were just friends, but I don't believe her. I made it clear that even if the DNA test confirms all 3 kids are mine, I will still go through with the divorce. From what I hear from my brother-in-law, who lives near her parents, she's a complete wreck and barely eats anything. My sister has also tried to reach out to me through her husband, but I told them I don't consider her my sister anymore after wasting 18 years of my life. Honestly, if the DNA test comes back negative, I don't know what I would do. I love my kids more than anything in this world, and finding out that even one of them isn't mine would break me more than anything else. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, listen man. At the end of the day it is still your marriage and way beyond Reddit's pay grade, but consider some solo therapy to work your feelings out. I understand your anger and rage, but I think it is coming from a fear that she cheated on you with him. I think. Honestly, why she wouldn't cut contact and hid it for this long is beyond me though. Like, what was the point of the deception? Reply, that's what I keep wondering. The only reason I can think of is that I was the safe choice, the stable option. She always wanted to get married, but he was never the type to settle down. He's more of an adrenaline junkie, someone who chases excitement rather than commitment. Commenter 2, the feeling of being second best and a safe choice is one that I hope no one goes through. I know a lot of people will tell you to man up, but I'm gonna go the other way and to acknowledge your feelings. Feelings and emotions can't be controlled or reasoned with, but if you acknowledge them you are able to work through them. We are human, after all. Honestly, I think you also need a reason for a deception this long. I'm sure you had to give up friends who were FWBs, so what was her reason? She'd need to own up to it without trying to gaslight you. Reply, I ended a friendship with a childhood friend because I used to date her in my first year of high school to show I was serious about our relationship. OOP on taking the DNA tests. Reply, I took the DNA test a week after finding out about their past, but I sent my wife to her family just 8 days ago. How did OOP meet his wife? Reply, I met my wife through my sister. She wanted to go on a date with a coworker of mine, and somehow it turned into a double date. That's where I met my wife for the first time, and we just hit it off. OOP on his marriage. Reply, our marriage was fine. Sure, I wasn't the perfect husband, but I always tried my best, from helping with household chores to taking her on surprise dates, even after we got married and had kids. I was never even jealous of her male friends because I trusted her completely. That's why this hurts so much. OOP explains on how he found out after all those years. Reply, my sister's ex started working at my workplace, and he seemed like a pretty nice guy. So I asked him why he and my sister broke up, and he told me that he couldn't stay with someone who still hung out with a former FWB. He also said I was a bigger man than him for letting my wife stay close to hers, something he could never do. How did OOP inherit his grandpa's house? Reply, my grandpa left me his house because he was like a father to me after my dad died. I used to ride my bike for 30 minutes every Sunday just to visit him and play chess. After I got my driver's license, he gave me his beloved car as a gift and taught me how to fish, hunt, and everything else I needed to know. Just because you had a bad relationship with your grandparents doesn't mean everyone else did. How did OOP's kids react about their mother's situation? Reply, the kids still don't know everything, but I think my daughter is starting to put the puzzle pieces together. As for my parents, I don't have any. My dad died when I was young, my mother passed away during COVID, and my grandparents died when I was 20. Regarding her family, her parents tried to talk to me, but I told them I need some time for myself. Her brother is somewhat understanding and is just watching over his sister to make sure she doesn't do anything reckless. Update 1. First, I want to make some things clear. I didn't kick her out of the house like some crazy person. I asked for space, and she accepted. I then drove her to her parents' place, which is a little over an hour away by car. The idea of cutting ties with exes was hers. When she said exes, she meant people like my childhood friend, who I only dated for a month in high school, but somehow not her FWB, with whom she had a sexual relationship for who knows how long. Yes, cutting him off would have probably cost her half of her friend group, but the same thing happened to me when I cut ties with my childhood friend because of her boundaries. If she didn't want to lose friends over this, she shouldn't have been the one to suggest cutting ties with exes then. I explained the reason for our separation to our children. She lied about something important, and I was upset. I told them that I wanted us to take some time apart for now. The house isn't about money. It's about the sentimental value. It holds memories of my grandparents and childhood, and it's where I've made so many memories with my kids. That's why I consulted with a lawyer about the house first. I would still need to pay at least $100,000 to my wife for the house, but I'm okay with that. I asked her about her relationship with that guy 2 or 3 times early in our relationship. She always assured me that they were just friends, but I felt insecure and asked my sister, who knew them for 4 or 5 years. She told me their relationship was like that of a brother and sister, so I chose to believe her big mistake. The FWB was never someone who would settle down and have a family. For as long as I've known him, he's always been traveling, doing dangerous things, and chasing thrills. That's why I feel like I was the safe choice for her. The fact that she kept their relationship a secret from me for 18 years only makes me think I am right. The results of the DNA test don't matter, they will always be my children. Even if the results come back positive, I still want to proceed with the divorce. However, I should at least try 3 to 6 months of couples therapy, if not for myself, then at least for the kids. About the test results, I'll wait for my best friend before looking at the results so I have someone for support. I'll post a small update in the comments once I look at them. Edit. Like some people have advised, I should probably have her take a polygraph test to see if she's lying, and I will do that. Edit 2. Update. So yeah, I don't really know how to start this, but my kids are mine by blood and soul. I can't even begin to describe the mix of happiness, sadness, and guilt I feel right now. But I wanted to give you all an update since you've helped keep my mind occupied and not let my thoughts spiral down into a dark place, so thank you all. So, about an hour and a half ago, my best friend, who I've known for as long as I can remember, drove nearly 3 hours to be with me and help me through this. After he arrived, we had a beer or two, and I told him everything. He just listened, letting me get it all out, and reassured me that he'd be there for me no matter what. After about 10 minutes, I finally gathered the courage to look at the test results and completely broke down. I collapsed into a crying mess. When I finally calmed down, we started talking about what I should do next. Should I try to save my marriage for the sake of the kids? Would that even be the right thing to do? That's when my friend shared something from his own past. When he was young, one of his parents cheated, but they still stayed together, for the kids. And he told me, without hesitation, that it was the worst thing they could have done. He spent years wishing they had just divorced instead of forcing everyone to live in that kind of broken relationship. His words, along with some of the private messages I've received, really hit me. So, I've decided not to try to save the marriage. I will go forward with the divorce. But I also want to make sure that, even after it's over, we can still work together for the best interests of our children. That's why I'll be going to both individual and couples therapy so that we can learn how to co-parent in the healthiest way possible. I also am looking for a good therapist for my 3 children so that they can begin to heal as soon as possible. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, wow, your sister lied to you to protect your wife's cheating. That's cold. Does your sister hate you or something? Reply, I always thought our sibling relationship was good. I even walked her down the aisle. Commenter 2, did she try to argue that he didn't count as an ex even though she had sex with him? She's likely going to argue that she isn't the person now that she was back then, but you need to find out what kind of person she was back then and if you would have dated and married her if you knew about it. If not, then her lies were essentially about deceiving you into a relationship with her, which doesn't show a lot of respect for you. Reply, she said something along those lines that she didn't want to lose a friend group because of this and that it was just meaningless sex they had a few times. She also claimed she hadn't met him alone since we made it official. If she hadn't made us cut off all our exes, I would have understood her not wanting to ruin a friend group. But she was fine with destroying my friend group with her boundaries, just not hers. Commenter 3, take your time. You don't have to make a decision right away. Couple therapy could help, if not for reconciling it will help with co-parenting. But don't get your hopes up. She lied for 17 years. I doubt she will tell the truth easily and be mentally and emotionally prepared for her to have cheated with him during your relationship or marriage. It's a possibility. I would honestly be more angry at the sister. She's the one who should have told you, not lied and covered for her. For now, focus on yourself and your kids. Reply, I'm prepared that if she has had a physical relationship with him, it's over, and I will do everything in my power to get primary custody of the children. As for my sister, this is a kind of betrayal I never thought I could experience, and I don't think I'll be able to forgive her for a long time. OOP's thoughts on giving the marriage a second chance. Reply, yeah, I'm giving the relationship a second chance after realizing that it was my sister's idea to cut off exes while keeping the FWB around. She also pressured my wife into other things, like forcing her to attend meetups where the FWB was, even when she didn't want to go. Looking back, I should have given my wife a chance to explain herself before things escalated, but I wasn't thinking clearly. I was too hurt, and my mind put me in a dark place where I didn't want to hear anything from her. I should probably make a final update with more details, but I'm not sure. The one thing I do know for certain is that I'm cutting my sister out of my life for good. OOP on his wife's responses to his emotions after he found out. Reply, oh no, she completely understood my anger, that's why she became a wreck after I drove her to her parents. She knew she messed up. She knew she should have spoken up sooner but was too scared, and as time passed, it only got harder for her to tell me. She did try to put distance between herself and him, but from what I read in the messages, my sister kept pushing her until she gave in and went along. Even when my wife tried to avoid them or make excuse not to go, my sister would lie by not telling her the FWB would be there or manipulating her in other ways to get her to go. Final update, I'm not divorcing my wife of 17 years because of an old FWB of hers. Hello, friends. I wanted to post one final update on what's been happening after I talked with my wife when she got back from her parents. As you can see from the title, I've made up my mind to give her a second chance after going through her current phone and her old phone from about 12 years ago. We had a long conversation where I asked her why she made me cut off my exes while she still kept her former FWB. Turns out, her first long-term boyfriend of 3 years had cheated on her with a mutual friend, which made her deeply insecure about her future partners having female friends, especially exes. From the time we started dating until I made our relationship official after about 5 or 6 months, she was struggling with those insecurities. When I asked her to make our relationship official and get engaged, she had a conversation with my sister, who suggested that we both cut off our exes. My wife agreed, but my sister convinced her that the FWB didn't count as an ex because they had only slept together twice during a trip to Europe with some friends. Later, my wife regretted lying to me and wanted to tell me about her past with him, but my sister stopped her. She told my wife that bringing it up would only cause unnecessary stress and could even put her pregnancy at risk. Because of that, my wife decided not to tell me but tried to distance herself from him instead. Eventually, she planned to cut him off completely without me ever knowing. However, my sister had other plans. She had a crush on the FWB's close friend and really liked that friend group. She knew that if my wife distanced herself, it would inevitably break up the group, so she pressured my wife into going to meetups where the FWB would be, sometimes lying to her about who would be there. Another possible reason my sister did this was that she herself wanted to keep seeing her own FWB while being in a relationship and didn't want to feel guilty about it. That's the only explanation I can think of. I also asked my wife if she would take a polygraph test to prove she never cheated on me, and she agreed immediately without a second of hesitation. So we're going to try to save this marriage, starting with marriage counseling and other steps to rebuild trust. But first, she has to completely cut off that friend group and block my sister from everything. And to address some of the private messages I've been getting, no, I'm not an abuser, nor have I financially abused my wife. She has been working since our twin boys turned 2, and my mother moved in with us to help care for them while we both worked. And no, I'm not just looking for an excuse to leave this marriage because of some midlife crisis. I love my wife and my children, and not being away from them for weeks or months would be heartbreaking. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, do you believe what she says about your sister? Has she corroborated what your wife says? Also, lie detector tests, if you're actually fucking serious about that, aren't admissible in court for a reason. Reply, I mean, it's not that I actually believe in lie detector tests. After reading about them and hearing what others have said, I learned they aren't as reliable as I thought. Honestly, I didn't even know they were real, I always assumed they were just something from TV and movies. But like someone mentioned in my last post, I should at least see how serious she is about taking one. And she really did seem like she wanted to do it, like she was eager to prove to me that she truly hasn't cheated. Commenter 2, at the very least you and your wife need to agree to cut off your sister. Maybe for good, definitely while you work together to rebuild trust. At every turn your sister has used your wife's insecurities to her own advantage and to undermine your marriage. Polygraph tests are garbage, don't waste your time or money on that. Reply, honestly, I never thought my wife was that insecure, but reading those old messages made me so angry at my sister for exploiting my wife's insecurities for her own benefit. Commenter 3, so now, your sister is to blame for your wife's choices. And she's completely innocent in all of this after deceiving you for years. And what makes you think your wife is an angel, when your sister, who kept a FWB while in a relationship with someone else, trusted her to go to these hangouts where she would basically cheat on her partner in front of your wife, and she never said anything? This is the person you're forgiving? What did you think she was doing there? Holding candles, cool. Reply, there was much more said than what I wrote in this post, and she provided proof of many things. So, I'm giving the relationship another chance because of that. I know this may not be the best decision, but it's the decision I've made. Still, thanks for taking the time to read my post and give me your thoughts. Commenter 4, sounds like she's totally throwing your sister under the bus to get in your good graces. Something doesn't add up here. Reply, given her personality, I truly believe my sister was able to manipulate her by exploiting her insecurities. When I said she's a people pleaser, I meant it. At the beginning of our relationship, she would do whatever I wanted, which might have seemed nice, but it really wasn't. I wanted her to enjoy herself and do things she actually wanted. It took nearly a year for her to feel comfortable enough to express her own desires instead of just letting me make all the decisions. Does the rest of OOP's family know about his sister's FWB? Reply, I don't have any family, it's just me and my sister since my mother died during COVID. That's why my wife believed my lie about wanting to learn more about my mother's family. She didn't talk much about them, but she always mentioned her brother, so I used the 23andMe excuse to try and find my mother's estranged brother or one of his descendants. She never suspected that I was actually trying to find out if my children were mine or not. Stories number 7. AITA for denying my sister's lies in front of her in-laws. I am 25F and have an older sister Kate 30F. She and I were never close due to our age difference and because she hated that our dad married my mom and had me after divorcing her mother. Kate claims dad told her he never loved her mother and that my mom was his true love, that our dad always compared the two of us and asked her why she has to be a difficult child and that overall dad loved me more. On the other hand, dad claims nothing she says is true, that she was very problematic and insolent. These claims are backed up by my mother and dad's parents, so I assume Kate was never 100% honest. Anyways, these are their problems that do not concern me. Some time ago Kate reached out to me and told me she got engaged. I said congrats and everything. She told me she has a favor to ask. She told me her MIL is very family-oriented and it does not sit well with her that Kate is estranged from her family. In her words, future MIL considered something is also wrong with Kate and she is also to blame for being no contact with her family, fearing Kate will also influence her son to do the same thing. What Kate wanted from me was for me to meet her in-laws for them to see she does not hate her family. I joked that future MIL sounds a little insane and I agreed to help her because at the end of the day I never hated her and I don't think she hated me neither. The fact we are not close does not mean we hate each other or want bad things to happen to the other one. Anyways, I went to meet Kate, her future husband and her MIL and FIL at a restaurant. They are very nice people and very warm. At some point MIL said something along the lines that she is happy to see that the abuse we suffered did not affect our sisterly bond. I was confused and asked what abuse is she talking about while Kate tried to change the subject. MIL says it's okay, I have nothing to be ashamed of and that she knows from Kate our parents abused us while growing up. I clarified that this is not true, we were never abused by our parents or anyone in our family, we were raised in a very loving family, we were never hit or spanked no matter what we did, our parents are well off so we always had everything we wanted, clothes, phones, laptops, cars etc. MIL got very angry. She apologized to me and started insulting my sister. She called her a liar, accused her of being manipulative and trying to insert herself into their family by being dishonest. What happens is that Kate accused our parents of many things that are not true. Now Kate is accusing me of ruining her life. She says her engagement is over, the in-laws hate her and her fiancé does not trust her anymore. The thing is I don't think I did anything wrong. I cannot sit and hear people blasting my parents for her lies and for things that never happened. But still, AITA for telling the truth. Comments. Commenter 1, NTA. Kate rolled the dice with a fake sob story and lost. I'd have done the same, nobody gets to slander my parents just to look good. Sucks for her, but that's on her lies, not you. Commenter 2, exactly. Kate gambled on a lie and it backfired hard. It's not OP's fault for telling the truth, it's Kate's fault for fabricating abuse. If she was willing to lie about something this serious, who knows what else she's lied about. Commenter 3, even worse, she lied to OP, shot what she lied about to MIL. So OP would have been a party to slandering her own parents simply by agreeing without knowing the details. Her sister pretty much painted herself into a really ugly picture. I'm sure her BF is totally on board with the relationship still though. She sounds lovely. Commenter 4. NTA Kate made a decision to lie and then it bit her in the ass. Sounds like she made her bed and she can lie, ha 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 ha, in it. Seriously though, how dumb is she? If she told her future MIL something that big, of course she would bring it up to you. And if Kate expected you to lie for her, she really is special. And not in the good way. In the eats paste way. Reply, I assume she never expected her MIL to be so blunt and tell me. But yeah, it's stupid. Commenter 5. I'd put money on the MIL already knowing she was full of shit to begin with and this just confirmed it for her. She probably caught her in other lies, saying things that just don't add up, etc. That's why she was so blunt about it. Update. So a lot has happened during these last days that generated even more drama. But before I get into that, I want to express a big thank you to those who commented and provided their feedback. After reading your comments, some things started making more sense and honestly it brought a lot of perspective over things that I missed. Also, I got really mad reading every little comment from those who projected their own messy family life over my family, and I realized the magnitude her words and claims can really have. People called my parents abusive, invented things that never happened and started projecting on what her life was. Some of them even claimed my mom ruined her family when my mom did not even met my father before his divorce, so it was a shock to me to see that strangers who somehow hear her stories may as well believe everything that she says without even doubting a word or even add their own dramas into the picture to feed her fantasy. The major thing that happened was that one day her ex-fiancé reached out to me via Facebook. He apologized for how things went during the meeting with his parents and asked me if I am willing to have a chat with him because he wanted to check my version for things that Kate told him. I explained that I do not want to do this behind her back because I don't think it was fair, but if he can manage to convince her for the three of us to have a conversation, I am all in. I also told him there are a lot of things I need to confront her about and I would really feel more comfortable with a witness there. For 2 days I have heard nothing from them, and yesterday the big conversation happened. We scheduled a call around evening because everybody felt more comfortable like this. I will say from the start that I had nothing to do with convincing my sister to attend the talk. This was her decision after discussing it with her ex. Based on what I understood, she agreed to it hoping that in the end her fiancé would take her back. Unfortunately, I will admit, her ex and I kind of ganged up on her because both of us had many questions and she was the one to provide answers. Some answers that I got from her: why did she lie about being abused by my parents? She claimed she did not specifically mention me as being abused but admitted she did not correct her MIL when she understood something else. So she knew her MIL was living with the assumption our parents abused both of us but did not correct her in any way. When her fiancé asked her why, she said she felt by not correcting her, the MIL will stop considering her the problem, knowing that there were two of us in the same situation. She still claimed she was abused by my parents. When I asked her to provide some clear examples, she first said, "You know very well what happened," but me and her fiancé insisted. Some of the things she mentioned were, when she was a teenager she was oftentimes punished while I was not, which was a clear indication I was loved more, and this is abuse. Keeping in mind that when she was 14 to 15 I was only 9 to 10 and she was doing bad things like getting suspended for smoking during one of her classes, skipping school, etc., how was I supposed to be punished along her? She said I was also doing bad things but was never punished while she was. Her fiancé asked her verbatim, "So you claim you were abused because you were punished for smoking in class while the bad things your younger sister did was maybe draw on walls? How do you assume would be fair to punish such different actions the same?" She was not able to answer. She claimed she was financially abused by our parents because they would not give her money for fun activities, school trips, or events when she misbehaved. This was an example of punishments what she would often receive. Her fiancé asked her if our parents provided her with basic things like food, clothes, school supplies, and she said yes. He mentioned parents are not obligated to financially support trips and fun activities, so how was she financially abused? I asked her if she ever thinks about everything she did wrong towards our family. She claimed she knows she was not a saint but she was a child. I pointed out that at 17 you are not a child and you know better than to swear on your grandmother. Her fiancé had no idea about anything, so I explained some very nasty things she did and said. One time we were getting ready to go to our cousin's baptize and she wanted to wear a black t-shirt with a pentagram on it. Grandma asked her to change because her outfit was not appropriate for a baptize. Kate called her an old, outdated fucking hag. Her fiancé mentioned a story Kate told him and his parents with an incident where my parents abused her and confiscated her car, leaving her to walk to school during winter time. What she failed to mention was that my parents confiscated her car because of a DUI that she treated like it was not a big deal. And secondly, she never had to walk to school during winter because she could have gone by bus, but in reality even with no car she carpooled with one of her colleagues. This triggered her ex a lot because unfortunately he lost his grandfather because of a drunk driver. So even knowing this, Kate lied and turned her story into a soap opera just for her to look like a victim. I asked her ex if she ever said negative things about me and he said no. She only mentioned some instances where our parents treated us differently but always pointed out that they were doing it to turn us against each other. But based on the stories she told, she apparently never blamed me for anything or said anything negative about me. The entire ordeal lasted for around 3 hours and in the end I was exhausted. I told her that even if we were never very close as sisters, I have always loved her and considered her my sister, period. Not half, just my only sister. I told her I understand that our parents could have handled things differently and maybe she did not receive all the help she needed to adjust to a stepmother and a new family dynamic, but I am now judging her as an adult who should know not to lie and pose as a victim and who should assume responsibility for her part. As people pointed out in my last post, I advised her to get therapy and solve all her issues, but until that happens I cannot continue to have a relationship with her. She accused me of favoring our parents over her, but I told her I favor the truth over lies and she should be ashamed of her. So that's what happened between me and Kate. I have no idea what happened or what will happen with her ex, but based on how things turned out, I really doubt he will give her another chance. He made it clear that she cannot be trusted and pointed out something his mother told him: if she is capable to lie in such a way about her own parent, what will she be capable of saying about him? He said he is not doubting she can start saying he was also abusive since this seems to be her narrative. But that's her own problem, she made this bed for herself. Comments. Commenter 1. I remember your last post. While I did suspect correctly that her experience growing up would be different from yours, I knew from the get-go she was up to something nefarious. She could have been honest, but instead she lied and expected you to cover for her. The story about her DUI made me lose any ounce of sympathy I may have had for her situation. Since she is a liar and may lash out at you, I suggest you talk to your parents about what happened so that they are aware and not caught off guard when it eventually gets back to them. Reply. I told them everything that happened so they can be aware. What was very hard to digest was the way they reacted. They were not angry, not enraged, they were just like, yeah, we expected that much from her. Commenter 2. That's so sad that their experiences with her have led to them feeling that way. I absolutely understand what it's like to have expectations like that of someone that you love. It's distressing and exhausting because it takes up so much emotion and energy. I'm glad you're backing away from such awful behavior. Stories number 8. Waita for refusing to give up my grandmother's engagement ring for my brother's proposal. So, this has turned into a huge family fight, and I need to know if I'm in the wrong here. My grandmother left me her engagement ring in her will. It's a beautiful vintage piece, very sentimental to me, because I was extremely close with her growing up. I've kept it safely stored for years. Here's where things get messy. My older brother, 30M, is planning to propose to his girlfriend, 28F, and recently asked if he could have our grandmother's ring. He said it would mean a lot to him to keep it in the family, and that his girlfriend loves vintage rings. I told him no. This ring was left to me, and I intend to either keep it or use it for myself someday. He got really upset, saying I was being selfish and that it's just sitting in a box, while he has an actual use for it. My parents sided with him, saying that as the eldest, it should have gone to him anyway, and that I'm being difficult for no reason. Things escalated when my brother said I was hoarding the ring out of spite and that I should want it to stay in the family. I told him I do, it's staying with me. Now, he's barely speaking to me, and my parents keep texting me about how hurt he is. AITA for refusing to give up the ring. Update. Grandmother's engagement ring. Wow, I did not expect this to blow up the way it did. Thanks to everyone who commented, whether you sided with me or not, I appreciate the perspectives. So, here's what's happened since my original post. A few days after the argument, my parents invited me over for dinner, saying they wanted to talk things through. I was skeptical but went anyway. Surprise, surprise, it was a setup. My brother and his girlfriend were both there, and the whole thing turned into an ambush. His girlfriend, who, by the way, had no idea about the drama, was super sweet and kept saying things like, "Oh, I don't want to take anything from you. I just loved the idea of something sentimental." So now I was the bad guy for making a big deal out of it. My parents kept pushing, my brother was sulking, and I was basically being guilt-tripped into handing over something that was willed to me. I stood my ground and told them all that the conversation was over. My brother then tried to compromise by saying, "Well, what if I borrow it just for the proposal and the wedding, and then you can have it back?" Nope. Not happening. Then, the real kicker, I found out from my aunt, my dad's sister, that my grandmother explicitly left the ring to me because she knew my parents would pressure me to give it to my brother. Apparently, she saw this whole mess coming and wanted to make sure I got something special of hers. When I told my parents this, my mom got really quiet, and my dad just said something like, well, she probably didn't mean to cause this kind of divide. At this point, I'm done with the whole conversation. My brother is still barely speaking to me, my parents are acting like I've personally ruined their lives, but honestly, I don't care anymore. I have the ring, it was left to me, and I'm keeping it. Thanks again for all the advice. Definitely don't feel like the anymore. Stories number 9. AITA for telling my neighbor I dated her husband. I, 33F, became friendly with my neighbor, 37F, let's call her Emily, after I helped her move a few boxes into our building while her husband, 35M, was in the hospital. I didn't meet Emily's husband until a few weeks later when she invited me over to dinner as thanks. When I arrived first, Emily's husband had run out to pick up some wine, but when he came back I was shocked to see Matt, a guy I had gone on 3 dates with a year ago before he suddenly ghosted me. He had a terrible poker face and tried to pretend like he didn't recognize me. I don't play those games. I asked how long they had been married and Emily said, 3 years. She recognized there was tension and asked if we knew each other. He said no. I said yes and told Emily that I had gone on dates with him a year ago. She became very upset and asked me to leave, which I did. The next day, Emily reached out and said that she didn't appreciate that I lied about when I dated her husband. He told her we had dated 4 years ago, before they were married. I didn't even live in this city 4 years ago. And even if we had dated 4 years ago, they had been engaged at that point. Either way, he would have been cheating. I sent her screenshots of our texts from the year before and from Bumble of his profile, which was still active. She never responded, but when I saw her in the lobby yesterday, she wouldn't even look me in the eye. I don't know if they're still together and Emily hasn't responded to my texts. So AITA for telling her the truth. Top comment. Commenter, you told her the info she did need to hear, now just let the pieces fall where they will. Do not engage further. NTA. You were being honest. But it's best to leave her alone now. Mini update comment. Update, Emily just stopped by. We had a quick chat but she let me know that she's kicked Matt out and she thanked me for telling the truth. She also found out that I was not the only person he dated while they were married. Giving her space now but wanted to share an update since it happened so quickly after posting. Update comment. A happy final update. Over the last few days, I've been hanging out with Emily along with her sister and 2 BFFs who flew in to support her. Tuesday night she texted me, space is overrated. Wine. And that was that. Matt confessed to everything and more, and it was all a lot worse than anyone thought. But this isn't about him anymore. We've all had some really good, sometimes difficult conversations, but it's all been very cathartic and surprisingly positive. I've found myself in the company of some pretty amazing women, which is why this situation has turned out the way it has. I moved to this city 2 years ago without knowing anyone. And it certainly wasn't an easy thing to tell someone that I'd hoped would be a friend, TBH it kind of felt like word vomit in the moment. And when I first posted, I admittedly wanted validation because there was a large and loudly nagging part of me that thought I'd done the wrong thing. So I'm very grateful to have come through what began as a really awful situation with 4 awesome new friends and far more laughs than tears. Emily, her sister, and I now are planning bi-weekly brunch dates, and we also discovered that we have some other friends and interests in common. This post got far more attention than I ever anticipated, so I did end up telling Emily about it. Her sister joked that we should start a podcast together and we both shouted "No." So this is both the end and a new beginning of this story. Thank you all for the support and kind words for both me and Emily. We're going to be just fine. Signing off. Stories number 10. AITA for calling my stepmother toxic after she screamed at me until I cried. I, 20M, and my brother, 16M, let's call him Nick, live with our dad, 47M, and his wife, 46F, Agatha. We moved in together in late 2022, and they got married in early 2023. Since moving in, our relationship with Agatha has been tense. She expects us to contribute to the household through chores, which is fair, except her contributions are sporadic and sometimes non-existent. Her reasoning is that she works full-time and pays for the mortgage, but my dad pays the other half and still does more around the house than she does. Also, she's been unemployed for almost a year, she has been dealing with her ailing mother and selling her old apartment, and has had way more free time than anyone else in the house lately. She does help out sometimes, but mostly when it involves her own interests, like redecorating or spontaneous, rage-fueled cleaning binges. Something important to note, Agatha has mentioned she likely has bipolar disorder and is seeing a therapist, I don't know for what specifically. She has a very short fuse, and if she's already in a mood, any mess sets her off. It's not uncommon to get texts like, "Clean this fucking kitchen." I understand anger, but whenever I try to talk about where it's coming from, the response is basically, she just doesn't like being reminded that other people live in her house. She's implied multiple times that she got married under the understanding that Nick and I would move out soon, and that we'd basically self-manage and not make mess, even though she's just as messy as the rest of us. No one brings this up because she's honestly scary. Anyway, here's the recent incident. I just got back from visiting my partner's family overseas and immediately started law school 2 days later and resumed my bar job, so I've been flat out. But I negotiated a chore schedule that works, and things have been okay. Today, while on a break from a major assignment, I went to make lunch and saw that Nick had already cooked and left stuff out. Normally I'd ask him to clean it, but I was in a rush and decided to just use what was already out. My dad came down, saw the mess, and asked me to clean up. I said I would after eating, since I might cook more. After I finished, I cleaned up about half the kitchen, including food and mess from my dad, wiped benches, and told my brother his half was still there to clean. Then I went back to my room to study. 2 minutes later, I get a text from my dad in our family group chat, kitchen. I was totally confused, I just cleaned more than half. I figured either Dad asked Nick about the mess, and Nick blamed me. Dad saw it still messy and assumed I bailed before finishing. I replied that I'd cleaned half and asked what Nick had said. My dad didn't answer the question, just said the kitchen needs to be cleaned. I repeated myself, again, no response to my question, just talk to your brother. So I did. Turns out Agatha had come into the kitchen after I left, yelled at Nick about the mess, and then my dad messaged me. I went to clarify with him. He and Agatha were already prepared for a discussion and called Nick over too. I asked if I'd be allowed to explain uninterrupted, they both said yes. My dad gave a whole speech about how important it is that the kitchen stays clean and how tired they are of reminding us. I listened quietly. When he was done, I said I understood and asked again to speak uninterrupted. About a minute into explaining my side, how I followed his instruction and cleaned my half, and then Agatha started interrupting. Then she snapped. She said she didn't need to hear the whole story, that I was still wrong, and started yelling at both of us. I asked her to let me finish, and she screamed, "No. It's my house. You do what I say." I broke. I started crying, full-on sobbing, but she kept screaming about the mess, about how sick she was of all of it. My dad eventually told her what she was doing wasn't okay and that he didn't like her shouting at his kids. She kept going, and I snapped. Through the tears, I said, "Are you hearing yourself? You are toxic." Yeah, she went full-on thermonuclear. I walked away, realizing I may have just gotten myself kicked out. As I went downstairs, I heard them yelling, not uncommon, but this time it was about me. I heard my dad shout, "He lives here too." I heard her shout, "Well then he can get out." I stayed crying in my room for 20 minutes. My dad came down and tried to talk to me about how I can't call her toxic, because it's therapized language and it hurts her. I get that. She's called her own parents toxic before, so hearing it turned on her probably hit a nerve. But I said what I said because I meant it. She acts like she deserves total respect and authority, but behaves like a child. She demands cleanliness, but makes months-long messes. She screams at us, but won't hear a word in return. She's always right, always the victim, and everyone else is the problem. She's harming me, and more importantly, my younger brother. We're both going to need therapy after this. I don't feel safe or comfortable in my own home. I'm constantly bracing to be screamed at for something minor that sets her off. And when she tries to be nice, it's so forced and uncomfortable, like a smiling snake asking for a hug. She makes promises to win us over, then rarely follows through. TLDR, I was being blamed for a mess I had mostly cleaned. When I tried to explain, my stepmother screamed at me until I cried. I called her toxic. Things exploded. AITA has no consensus bot, OOP was NTA. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, you are not the A. You are a victim of emotional abuse. Reply, thank you. You have no idea how much it meant to me to see this. I know it's fucked up, but I was starting to think maybe I was in the wrong for saying what I did. Commenter 2, NTA sounds like you copped it over a situation that has built up to boiling point. In this one instance you said your dad asked you to clean the mess, and you told him you would. If you told him that you would clean your half, and your brother needed to do his share, he may have gone to your brother to finish the job. Living with somebody who has a mental illness that causes behavior like this is exhausting. Your father is the one who has brought you all together and he needs to be more responsible for keeping the peace. If when they got married, he told her his children would not be living with him, and she made it clear to him her ability to cope with that was not good, he needs to do more to make it easier for her. He also needs to provide a home for his children and should not be exposing you both to this chaos and toxic behavior. Your father is the asshole here. People don't grow up hoping to become a step-parent one day, it's sometimes a thankless and unappreciated role. She is clearly resentful and ill-equipped for this situation. I hope it works out for you all. Reply, all of that is very true. As much as I hate to give my dad any blame for this, it is his fault for bringing us into this situation with her, and it's up to him to get us out. Although I am basically at the point where I'll be moving out as soon as I can. I later had an opportunity to speak with him privately and I said that if I was in his situation, the relationship would be over and I'd be taking my kids somewhere safe. I asked my dad how he was okay with this kind of behavior from his wife. He said that he wasn't, and that he was just expecting change. The amount of self-control not to say anything back to that was enormous. Because seriously, if this was the other way round, and she had the kids and her husband was yelling at them, people would be calling her stupid for staying with an abusive man and expecting him to change. Like really, am I insane? Commenter 3, NTA. It sounds like a legitimate response to an unfair situation. You should remind your father that it is more legitimate for you, give your age, to lash out than it is for her, and yet somehow you've been made to feel responsible for her inability to control herself. It's not okay and you deserve better. Reply, no, you're absolutely right. This isn't okay, I can see that now. I shouldn't have to put up with being made to walk on eggshells around my house. I'm going to try and get another opportunity to speak to my dad tomorrow and make sure he understands how much this has impacted me and my brother, and how, through his inaction, he is actively making a choice to continue allowing abuse to be inflicted upon us. To me it doesn't really make sense why he would allow it. Commenter 4, NTA. Your stepmom's screaming wasn't a discussion, it was a verbal assault in your dad's therapized language lecture. Please, you're not a feelings translator for a grown woman throwing tantrums. Pack your bags and protect your brother. You should find somewhere you can live without bracing for emotional landmines. Update 1. So, yesterday after I posted to Reddit, my brother, my father and I went grocery shopping, sort of just to get out of the house. While we were out I expressed how I was feeling to him. The fact that if I was in his position the relationship would be over. He basically just said he was trusting her to change, and that he had seen her change. I personally haven't seen any change. What I've seen is her becoming more and more reclusive, being less involved with our lives, and our relationship with her becoming more tense as a result. Late last night, after venting to my partner about the whole situation on the phone and reading some really kind and insightful replies, I was literally crying while reading them, thank you. I locked and barricaded my door before going to sleep. I just didn't feel safe to sleep in an unlocked room. This morning my dad knocked on my door, I removed the stuff from behind it and we had a quick chat. It was brief, but dense, so I'll try to summarize. Apparently she wasn't home last night and she's going out tonight. I told him that what she did yesterday was abuse and I refused to have it happen again. Dad said that he would face her with an ultimatum, change or they're done. I told him that only thing that was guaranteed is the abuse and pain that's already happened, and will likely continue. This isn't the first time she's been asked to change. I told him that my brother and I have already been hurt, and that we'll need therapy because of this. He acknowledged that and said maybe it will be best if they just live separate for the next few years, with us living with him until we move out. I said I thought this is a good idea. He admitted that she doesn't want a relationship with us, she only tries as he wants her to. I said that when my brother and I move out, his relationship with us will be worse because of the way she isolates him. He said that the reason she has such a hard time with us is because she hates having to ask us to clean and do our chores. I said, sure, but she's not the victim here, she lives surrounded by her own mess all the time, and we don't say anything, let alone yell or scream. I said very clearly, that we don't feel safe or comfortable in our own home. What she is doing is abuse and emotional manipulation. It's not okay. The fact that it's happened at all should be the end of it. The fact that we're still here trying to make it work is a problem. We'll be having a sit down, just the three of us, without her, after I get home from work tonight. I don't think I would have had the courage to do this without the support I received from the comments. You guys helped me realize that this isn't okay, and I can't keep accepting it, for me, for my brother, and for my father. So thank you, so much, the support has been really invaluable. Top comments. Commenter 1, good job on standing firm for all three of you whether your father recognizes it or not. Commenter 2, good job. I personally think it would be wrong to leave a 16 years old to live in their own, for you're at 20 it would be okay, but not okay that a 20 years old is in charge and responsible for a 16 years old. IMHO your dad's responsibility is to his children first. And that stepmom isn't safe for you and your brother. IMHO it's dad's job to make sure his children are safe and you clearly are not as it is. I have a feeling that she isn't even kind to your dad especially when he is advocating for you guys. I hope your discussion was a good one that ended in a solid plan that makes you and your bro not only are safe, but feel safe. Commenter 3, NTA remind your father that choosing to stay with this woman who treats his own children this badly is going to have long-term consequences. He will see you and your brother less frequently. Once you get married you will probably choose to spend more holidays with your spouse's family. As she has made it clear that she doesn't appreciate children, and is abusive towards them, he can expect to only see his grandchildren when he visits and she will not be invited. Update 2. So, after I got home from work, the three of us, my dad, my brother, and I, met in the kitchen to talk. It turns out my dad had tried talking to Agatha about what I'd said to him earlier today, and even said that she was being emotionally abusive directly to her, and she told him she would never forgive him for saying that. I wasn't there to hear it, but my brother told me there was a lot of shouting followed by her packing her bags and going to stay with a friend for the night. The conversation with my dad and brother went on for hours. As I write this, it's been more than 3 hours after I got home and we only just finished less than half an hour ago. I started by being very firm and reiterating the fact that what she did yesterday was extremely abusive, and it's certainly not the first time this has happened, and it's likely not the last. I said that, it shouldn't matter what the circumstances are, screaming at us to inflict pain should never be an option. My dad immediately went to using the argument that I've heard from her so many times to justify her being abusive in her relationship with my brother and I, that when the chores don't get done she gets really angry. I said that I understand the anger, but she's an adult, she needs to manage that and engage in discussion with us rather than just yell at us and refuse to listen to any explanations. Yesterday, we had done what we had been told, and when I tried explaining the confusion, she screamed at me until I cried, and then kept going. I said very clearly, us forgetting to do some chores, and her abusing us are not on the same level. He said, well, you say that. I almost broke down again. Like seriously, if a little mess causes a meltdown, maybe she shouldn't be living in a house with 2 people with diagnosed ADHD, near constant remodeling and modifications, and 2 large, messy dogs. Not to mention that she herself is far from perfect. I said that it is not okay that she'll just imply eviction to keep us in line. She'll say things like, you better unpack that dishwasher. I pay for the roof over your head, you need to pull your own fucking weight in this house if you want to live here. She said this to my 16-year-old brother over dishes. There was a lot of back and forth about this thing of us, provoking her. Eventually I used an analogy to try and explain it. If someone is in an aquarium with a shark, and they cut themselves, accidentally or not, and the shark enters a frenzy and attacks, the question shouldn't be, why weren't they more careful? There's a shark in there, it should be, who the fuck put that person in the tank with a shark? I think that got through to him. He asked me what I expected him to do. They're married, he can't just leave, and I asked, why not? What would need to happen for you to get us and yourself out of here? Physical abuse. One of us getting pushed down the stairs. Because that's the way it's going. After that things shifted a little. It became much less oppositional discussion as he came to the realization of what had to happen. He did say that the 4 of us, including Agatha, would need to sit down and talk about what needs to be done. I don't really want to do this, and I'm honestly scared about seeing her again. The last time I stood up to her she didn't speak to me for a week and she used this glare that made me feel uncomfortable in my own skin. She only started talking to me again after I foolishly apologized to keep the peace. I feel quite sad for my dad. At this point he's barreling towards a second divorce, and his children are being abused by the person he loves. It's a tough situation for him to be in, but I have to ask how he didn't see it coming. The conversation ended with hugs, and my dad went upstairs to go to sleep. My brother and I kept talking, and eventually we started talking about how things were going with his girlfriend. He made a joke, and we laughed, maybe a little too loud, and I looked at the stairs almost out of instinct, expecting her to come down and yell at him to clean the kitchen and go to bed. I realized I don't have to worry about that right now. I really hope I never have to worry about that again. Again, thank you so much for the support. I'm not one to advocate so hard for myself, maybe one of those issues for therapy, but you helped me realize that I don't owe her endless chances to change, and the support from you guys has given me the strength not to back down again. So really thank you, and if something happens I'll be sure to update you. P.S. Sorry if this one isn't as well edited as the previous ones, it's been a long couple of days. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Having a conversation that includes Agatha will be pointless. I mean that's how all this started. You tried to have a conversation about the kitchen not being cleaned and she went off on you. Your father just needs to accept that she is not a good person, she won't change and will continue to be abusive to you. This marriage is over unless he wants to risk losing you and your brother. Reply, yeah, to be honest, I don't really see the point of a sit down with her. At this point it doesn't matter if she apologizes and promises to change, I'm not going to trust her. But to be very clear, I don't expect her to ever apologize, I don't think she's capable of understanding the hurt she's causing, and my dad has even said as much when trying to explain why she's never said sorry. What's more likely is that we'll just cop more abuse over daring to cause problems in her marriage and be called insensitive for hurting her mental health by calling her abusive. Commenter 2, your father is evidently preferring to let her continue to abuse you rather than protecting you by separating your living spaces. He's still putting her and his marriage above his children who are too young to live elsewhere. I hope the shark analogy got through, but I fear he'll come up with more excuses. If this doesn't resolve in a few days, consider calling an adult who can house you, or speak to the school guidance counselors for your brother or even CPS or Child Help Hotline. https www.childhelphotline.org. CPS in your area might require serious physical abuse or neglect to get involved, but if you impress on them that you too are at the end of your ropes emotionally, terrified, and despondent, it might get her or you removed from the situation. That's a last resort. Don't threaten it, but use it if you have to. You're an adult but your brother isn't, so that might give you some leverage. Reply, in terms of my brother and I just packing up and leaving, it is an option, and one that I have deeply considered. But at this point I'm just going to wait and see if my dad decides to give her yet another chance. I seriously doubt that he will at this point, and I really hope I'm right. I just do not see this working with her. If she comes back I'm not certain what I'll do. Maybe if he bends over again and lets her back, and I'll get my brother to have a bag packed and tell my dad that if anything happens at all I'm taking my brother and I away to our mom's house, which is 100 kilometers away, but the situation there is quite complex as well, no abuse, just an abnormal family dynamic that I had hoped to stay out of, but 10 times better than here, or even his mom's, our grandma's, house. Grandma's never really liked Agatha because of her pretty rude and narcissistic personality. Also she almost never comes to family events because they're triggering for her. As for CPS, I'm in Australia, but we have a very similar system here in my state, and if my dad tried to stop me from getting my brother out I guess I'd have to call them to get him out. But I'm really just hoping that Agatha will realize it's over, even though she thinks she did nothing wrong, and will just do everything through a lawyer or friend so we don't have to see her again. Stories number 11. Am I the asshole for not letting my girlfriend, 20, have a movie night with our colleague male, 40? Hi, I think I am going insane over this, and I want to hear what AITA think about this. Me male, 21, and my girlfriend, 20, have been together since I was 16 and she 15, and we have been inseparable since then, well, until now. We work at the same company and have done so for about 2 years now, we even work in the same section. So lately she have been getting closer to our colleague male, 40, and I have not seen a problem with this since he's 40. But recently they have wanted to hang out after work separately from me and our other friends. Things they do is just go for a walk, run or hikes, which normally take around 40 minutes to an hour, which is normal I guess. But now my girlfriend wants to have a movie night at his house, and they are going to watch the latest Fast and Furious movie. I asked to join but they need to be alone because they are going to talk about friend stuff. She said they were like best girlfriends. At first I thought okay, that's fine I guess, because again he's 40, but now after the fact I'm starting to worry that they are getting a little too close. Am I going crazy, or is this something male and girlfriends do normally? I don't really have any experience in just that, cause I don't really have any girlfriends that I am that close with except my girlfriend. So please, I need some advice or just outside views on this. Edit. Just from the first few comments I would like to add some details. First, she is acting just like normal to me, loving, caring and overall like the girl I fell in love with. Second, this may seem a little bit arrogant, but if I may self-glaze a little, I am 6'4" blonde, fit from going to the gym for 5 years, love cooking, traveling, and hanging with friends and family. He is 5'8" bald, not really fat, but on the more out of shape side, and is kind of a gamer, I guess, and I mean computer games. So he only has a handful of friends, and the same at work. I do not say this to bully him or belittle him in any way, it's just straight facts. Third, my girlfriend said that after meeting some of his friends at a local get-together here, she said it felt weird being so much younger than everyone at that specific table that she just kept it short when she said hi to them. Final. So if you put all this together, I can't see any reason to why I should have been suspicious earlier. Update. Thanks for all the comments and DMs. There is no way I can answer all of them, so I will try to make an update now as I feel almost responsible to do it for the big response from the community. She actually went through with it. Earlier today we sat down to discuss just how I felt about this whole thing and that it is weird for her to go alone home to him as he is effing 40. I was very clear about my opinion about being excluded from this whole thing and that it is not alright for me to feel like I am third-wheeling my own relationship. Her answer, I did not take you for such an insecure man after 5 years together. Honestly, this kinda broke me. How is it okay for her to just set my feelings aside with a comment like that? I must admit I am absolutely not the best with expressing my feelings in this kind of way, and it feels very uncomfortable for me to open up like that to someone even if we have been together for years, and I can kinda see why when Rat was her response. After that one little comment it really sank in that she actually don't care about me anymore. The rest of the conversation went downhill from there on. I started to accuse her for cheating. she started throwing a effing fit about how dared I accuse her of things like that after 5 years. Target her, how didn't I trust her? After about 20 minutes of this I was honestly broken down. So I just walked out, didn't say anything, just walked. I was out for about 30 minutes just to try and clear my head from this whole conversation. When I came back she was waiting for me with just one question: do you think I have cheated on you? I said yes, I really do. And then I think I did something stupid. I showed her my first post to get my point across even more, that the things I'm feeling and thinking about is the all-around opinion in the comments. She was stunned and silent for a bit, and I think she actually kinda saw why I felt the way I did. Her response after that: I must go, the 40-year-old is waiting to start the movie and I think we should have a small break from each other. She fucking went to him after our fight. What did it do? I went to my father at his work and actually cried in his arms for the first time in probably 15 years. And now I'm at home in bed and have talked to my landlord and she is very understanding, and she said that I can take my name from the lease anytime I want. What now? I'm in my bed feeling totally empty, numb, sick, furious. And to be honest, I went kinda off the hook when I came back from my dad. I threw some shit on the floor, actually cut the networking cable in the wall, as she is maintaining a blog that she is very passionate about. I won't link it, so don't even ask, as I don't want to give that POS more activity on it. This update went probably just the way people expected it to do, so I hope people is happy. My relationship is probably 100% over to spare me in the future. But please, how can I come out on top on this? I have to see both on Monday when we get to work. I don't think I can handle this, so please, advice is more than welcome. I might do another update later on if I can mentally go through this again. As per now I literally can't handle it. I am mentally breaking down as I am writing this update. Holy shit, Ada, thank you for the overwhelming response on my little situation, if you can call it that. There is no way in hell that I will be able to answer even the minority of the comments and DMs, so I will do my best to update you guys, as I really do think I almost owe it to you after the incredible response. Well, where should I begin? When I look back on my personal response on this, it was really childish for me to start breaking stuff and cutting wires like I was throwing a tantrum, which I probably was. I have set out to replace the stuff that was ours, and the stuff that was mine doesn't really matter, and the internet wire will be fixed tomorrow. This has shown a whole new side of me that I didn't know existed, but honestly, can you really blame me too hard for this? This has been hands down the worst weekend in my life, and I was actually surprised that I didn't really saw any comment calling me out on my bullshit behavior. Now on to the rest of this. I left off when I was laying in bed and typing out what happened on Friday. The rest of that Friday I did just that. I kept in bed for the rest of the night and could not sleep, as I was just thinking about all our memories and that we will never create new ones. As well as I was think way too much about what they probably was doing in another bed. The Saturday I did a big mistake. I started to drink. That lead me to go to a party, and honestly I should not have done that, because I drunk called my now ex and asked one last time if it really was over for us, and indeed she said yes. And this is why you should not drink after something like this, because unlucky for me one of her closer friends was at that party and one thing lead to another and we ended up in bed together. And I did this only to make my ex mad. You can't imagine my regret on Sunday. I have never done anything like this before and will never do again. And I said as much to the friend, and apologized profusely for using her for this, and she said it was okay and she understood, but you could see that it hurt her more than she said, and I feel like the biggest asshole in the world, and I can't even imagine how she feels, and I really deserve all the shit my way from you guys for this. After all that I also felt as I cheated on my ex for doing this. I can't explain why, I just did. Probably because I had sex with someone else the day after we broke up a 5-year relationship. The rest of the Sunday I was dwelling in what I just did and absolutely despising that it is Monday tomorrow, and I am actually feeling sick to just go to work. Monday, today, comes and it started probably the worst way possible. My ex and our colleague comes to work in the same car, and when I tell you it felt like that burning coal in my stomach becomes a absolutely all-developing black hole. I can't describe it better than that, but being a man I guess I just tried to ignore it. I must have not been so convincing, because she came right over to me and said that it's not what it looks like. He actually had just picked her up at our house. I have slept at my dad's house from Sunday to Monday. This did not make me feel any better whatsoever, because how can I believe that? But I did also apologize for my behavior from Friday and that I had acted childish and immature. She said it's okay and that it was understandable why I did what I did. Then after that the rest of the day got even worse, if you can believe that. Somehow the word of our breakup had already spread like wildfire on work, and to my delight apparently it was almost like an open secret that my ex and our colleague had hooked up at least once before on a business party, and that was it for me today. I called it, and went to my boss, told him I was sick and went home. A couple hours later I'm just sitting here trying to eat. It's not going so good, and just thinking about how my colleagues at work could hold such a secret for me, and I can't even imagine continue working here anymore, so I am also sitting and looking for new work as we speak. And as it stands right now I have taken my name of the house lease and will start to pack my stuff tomorrow to move out and move into my father in the meantime whilst I find a new place. As the last post, I do really appreciate some advice, and this time I will try to be more active when it comes to the comments and DMs. I am also tired of hearing, you are young, you'll find someone new. My problem is I don't really want anyone other. So what do people think about my current situation? The definition of a shit show. Edit. I have gotten a ton of messages that said I was unbelievably childish about all my decisions, and I know I was. Just calling me out being childish is one thing, but please leave some advice or something at least so I can at least take it as some sort of helpful criticism. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Move on from her. She's now officially dating him. Does she know you are moving out? You should speak to your manager about the situation and how she hooked up with him on a business trip. You need to block her and move on with your life. Gray rock her. Make sure you tell her parents she broke up with you for a 40-something man. Reply. She knows I will be moving out, and will respectfully keep away from home tomorrow so I can get my things out as fast as possible. Won't probably not block her as I can't see why, as I don't know why she would want to contact me again after all this is done, as I'm just an ex now. And her parents will probably find it out by themselves in time. OOP when told destroying things was childish and he needs help. I absolutely agree. I will keep on working on myself in the future, and nothing will excuse my action in this whole thing, and I feel ashamed and disgusted about how I handled it. I will do everything in my power to make the friend to not feel used, as I can't even imagine how she actually felt about it. Stories number 12. Written up at work for my daughter's victim statement in police report. I would like to sincerely thank the numerous responses and advice. I took a mental health day, declined the meeting, and spoke to a law office with a meeting set for later this week. The union rep confirmed I made the right choice and still offered whatever support the union can, although it sounds as though this is even larger than what their legal team typically encounters or handles. I truly appreciate the support. I work at a public elementary school, which my daughter attended last year. She reported inappropriate interactions by a male administrator, which I reported to the principal along with other concerning behaviors I had observed. He is relatively new to the position, and has yet to prove his ability to be trusted, hold people accountable, or follow through on things. His reaction to my concerns bothered me. He argued that males are okay to use the children's restrooms, as they just need to run in real quick. I received little to no reassurance that this man would stay away from my child. I then went and reported my daughter's situation and my expectations to other key staff, including the social worker and her teachers. I needed to know she would be protected from him. She was completely unnerved and creeped out by the way he interacted with her. I needed to know the other children would be protected from him. The remainder of the year, I watched him like a hawk. He never again went near my daughter. About a year from this initial set of incidences, I receive a message from another mother. I've been here for 6 years, I have relationships with numerous families. They had contacted the police over what this man did to their daughter. Not knowing the full story, but knowing that I had issues with this man prior, she informed the detective and he asked to speak to me and interview my daughter, which I agreed to. Several other children, parents, and staff were interviewed as part of the investigation. The case is closed active and he was removed from the position, yet not officially terminated. The principal and his direct supervisor received a copy of the police report from the head of security, and unleashed absolutely anger in my direction. I've been asked to debrief numerous times, where I get cornered alone and am told it's my fault for talking to the police, and dramatic emphasis on the word allegedly indicated my child lied. I joined the union and got a rep so I no longer have to have closed-door meetings without a witness on my side to hear this crazy shit. 2 months ago, I was informed I was receiving a write-up for breach of confidentiality based on the contents of the police report. When I attended the meeting with the HR rep and principal to receive the write-up, I lost my mind. They quoted pieces of my daughter's victim statement in the write-up. I stopped the meeting to explain this was entirely unacceptable. The principal got aggravated and spouted more insane BS. I told him this was no longer a discussion and I was signing to note that I was receiving this BS write-up, but that I would follow district policy with a formal rebuttal within the given 10-day period. I did write a quite aggressive rebuttal, quoting board policy, social contacts, and the state law. The union rep reviewed it and found it to be assertive but appropriate. No one responded to my rebuttal and my call for higher level of accountability, fair application of policies, and refrain from retaliation. Because they chose crickets, I chose to file a grievance with the district. I finally received a call from someone in the superintendent office after almost 4 weeks following the filing of the grievance. He claims he is neutral. He wants to meet to hear my side of this. He won't allow my union rep to be present with me. HR did not provide a copy of my rebuttal with the write-up, even though it is district policy to always attach the rebuttal to the write-up when it is requested. What should I be doing here? Colorado is one party so I could record our meeting. Do I need to talk to a lawyer? I feel like I'm walking into a trap. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. I am a mandatory reporter. This man's actions were wildly inappropriate. Why am I now the bad guy? I also feel that they are dragging this out to simply not renew me as an easy way to get rid of me. I need some advice please. Stories number 13. AIO at my son, 15M, for grossing out my daughter, 11F, on purpose. Our son has recently been doing gross stuff to our daughter to get a rise out of her and she really hates it. It started when she gagged when someone passed gas in a small room and he thought it was funny, and now he's periodically tried to fart in her face, hold the doggy bag up to her nose when walking the dog, and huffed in her face in the morning without brushing his teeth, causing her to gag a lot. He thinks it's funny but she really hates it and wants him to stop. He knows this and I've told him this after the first 2 incidents, but he still did it again. He says, I'm not hurting her, it's just a smell, it's funny and she needs to get over it. In response, I told him, next time this happens, I'm going to make you smell something you won't be able to handle. And you're not going to get to stop smelling it just because you hate it or it makes you feel queasy. He asked, what could you make me smell that's so bad? And I said, you don't want to find out, you don't give her any warning when you do these things so you aren't receiving one either. I'm a vet tech though and have more than adequate means to follow through on this. He sort of rolled his eyes and said, whatever, but it did make him stop for a while. Until yesterday morning when he burped in her face again and laughed about it. I simply told him, alright, I'll be carrying out the punishment we discussed. I let my daughter take a mini vacation with my husband to get away from him in the meantime, to a local hotel and water park, while I prepare to administer his punishment. Just need a couple more dogs at work who need expressions. After talking with others about it though, I just wonder if it's too harsh a punishment. My husband fully supports it and so do 3 of my co-workers, but 2 of them say it's too harsh, and that a smell this bad is way disproportionate to burps and farts. I said that everyone has a different tolerance to these things though, and if he repeatedly violates his sisters, then he needs to realize what it's like to be on the flip side of this. I told my husband I was having second thoughts and wondered if it was too harsh of a punishment, but he said, it's not undeserved and you have to follow through on your promise. Update, I followed through and disciplined my son for repeatedly grossing out my daughter. Thanks to all who commented. It was pretty clear I had to follow through or wouldn't be respected, and that the punishment was fitting. Most people seem to agree except for the radical modern people for whom the concept of punishment seems total alien to them as a concept. I talked to my daughter and husband on the phone one more time too and she said I for sure needed to follow through. There was a pug with a particularly funky gland expression at work that day, too, so perhaps Providence was showing its agreement as well. Some were telling me to wake him up with it or stink up his room, but I didn't want the house to smell for ages. I just told my son to come to the backyard with me for his punishment, and that if he at any point resisted or refused, I'd have Dad come home to assist and the punishment would be 20 times longer. I made clear that was literal. He said, fine, let's get this over with, and followed me out. I showed him the jar, it had 12 dogs' expressions, told him I was going to pop the lid and hold it to his nose and he was going to take 3 sniffs, and that's what he did. It got a bigger reaction than even I expected. After the first sniff his eyes widened and he was gagging, and he was holding his tummy afterwards, saying, oh my god, that is hideous. I told him, it's just a smell, it's not harming you, right? Shouldn't I be able to do this as often as I want if I think it's funny, just like you do to your sister? He said, okay, I learned my lesson, I'll stop, and turned to go back inside, but I said, oh no, don't you remember what I said would happen if you did that to your sister again? You weren't going to get to stop smelling it just because you hated it, just like she wasn't. He looked back at me as if hoping I was joking and I said, think about how your sister felt, knowing you were going to do this again and make her feel sick and being powerless to stop it. I then gave him a choice, he could put his nose over the rim for 3 minutes straight and get it over with right now, or he could come back outside with me every hour on the dot for another 2 sniffs until I decided the lesson had been learned. He agonized over the choice and said there was no way he could do 3 minutes, so chose the latter. Once per hour that day we went back outside and it never seemed to get any easier for him, but after only the 4th time I said I think he's learned his lesson because I could see it was asterisk really getting to him. Didn't want anything overly harsh, but something very unpleasant which I think was achieved. I told him that I think he's learned why these sort of pranks aren't funny to people, and that if I ever heard of it happening again, he'd be spending a good, long while with his nose in a jar like this or worse. I think he got the message. Daughter and husband came home from their mini vacation later that night and there have been no incidents since. I think he got the message loud and clear. TLDR followed up on punishment for my son, I believe it was fair and effective. Stories number 14. My 34F partner of 5 years took issue with me M36 sending my 8-year-old back to her mom's with food. Am I insane? Disclaimer, I apologize in advance for asking for advice about someone who got mad about a half-eaten loaf of bread. For clarification, I was never married to my ex, she was a common-law partner. Perhaps I should have used a different term than separated. Background. I am the dad to 8 and 11-year-old girls who I love and care for very much. I separated from their mom 6 years ago, we are on good terms and when I work away from home she often keeps the girls on my week as a favor to me as she works from home. I pay child support although it's minimal. I met my partner about 5 years ago. She has one child who is 9 years old and is also separated. My partner and I don't currently live together full-time, but we are in the process of closing on a house. Overview. Both my partner and I have been working out of town for the past week, in different locations, and as such traveled separately. On my way home I stopped at a bakery and bought a loaf of raisin bread that my youngest really likes. This is the only bakery where this can be purchased. I had my 2 girls this weekend as I hadn't seen them all week, and their mom had done me a favor by keeping them for me on my week. About 1-2 the loaf of bread was left today, Sunday, and I was heading back out of town for the week, as was she. While getting things ready to pack, my partner asked me if I was going to freeze the bread as it was on the countertop. I replied no, explaining that it doesn't freeze well and that I was going to send it with my daughter to her mom's and she could finish it. My partner, clearly upset by this, grabbed her items and went to bedroom. I followed to ask what the concern was. She was angry that I was sending half the loaf of bread and exclaimed that my ex can buy her own food, and claimed that I was sending it so that my ex might have some of the bread. I was taken back by this and reaffirmed that it's for my daughter and that I thought this was completely ridiculous. My partner, clearly still very upset, began making assertions that I should send other groceries or get back together with her, etc., etc., obviously very upset by this. My partner gathered her belongings and left early to head to work. I received a message claiming that this is disrespectful to her, my partner, and I don't respect boundaries. I am totally disappointed, confused, and upset that a 34F is making this out to be about themselves, and I'm not sure if I should be upset or if I am failing to consider her point of view. I told her that I'm sorry that she feels this way, but I think it's totally pretty and immature. To make matters worse, when I went to pack the half loaf of bread I noticed the package was now torn open, and I can only think that my partner did this. Stories number 15. I owe at my son, 15M, for grossing out my daughter, 11F, on purpose. Our son has recently been doing gross stuff to our daughter to get a rise out of her, and she really hates it. It started when she gagged when someone passed gas in a small room and he thought it was funny, and now he's periodically tried to fart in her face, hold the doggy bag up to her nose when walking the dog, and huffed in her face in the morning without brushing his teeth, causing her to gag a lot. He thinks it's funny, but she really hates it and wants him to stop. He knows this, and I've told him this after the first 2 incidents, but he still did it again. He says, "I'm not hurting her, it's just a smell, it's funny and she needs to get over it." In response, I told him, "Next time this happens, I'm going to make you smell something you won't be able to handle. And you're not going to get to stop smelling it just because you hate it or it makes you feel queasy." He asked, "What could you make me smell that's so bad?" And I said, "You don't want to find out. You don't give her any warning when you do these things, so you aren't receiving one either. I'm a vet tech though and have more than adequate means to follow through on this." He sort of rolled his eyes and said, "Whatever," but it did make him stop for a while. Until yesterday morning when he burped in her face again and laughed about it. I simply told him, "All right, I'll be carrying out the punishment we discussed." I let my daughter take a mini vacation with my husband to get away from him in the meantime, to a local hotel and water park, while I prepare to administer his punishment. Just need a couple more dogs at work who need expressions. After talking with others about it though, I just wonder if it's too harsh a punishment. My husband fully supports it, and so do 3 of my co-workers, but 2 of them say it's too harsh, and that a smell this bad is way disproportionate to burps and farts. I said that everyone has a different tolerance to these things though, and if he repeatedly violates his sisters, then he needs to realize what it's like to be on the flip side of this. I told my husband I was having second thoughts and wondered if it was too harsh of a punishment, but he said, "It's not undeserved and you have to follow through on your promise." Comments. Commenter 1. Draining anal glands, you told him. He kept on. But make sure that it's not about retaliation. It's about doing as he told even when he thinks something is no big deal. Yes, siblings pick on each other. It should have been enough when his sister said stop. He didn't listen. It was more than enough when you as his parent told him to stop. He didn't listen. He doesn't set the rules in the house. You do. Once you giving him a nice whiff right in his face, make sure that he gets an actual punishment for his hard-headed behavior. He needs to lose some privileges for a week or 2, and he absolutely needs to apologize to his sister. I'd make him do her chores for a week since he wants to give her so much negative attention. He can show her love by being helpful and give her positive attention by doing her chores. Commenter 2. You pointed out the biggest issue. It should have been enough when his sister said stop. Pranks and jokes that aren't explicitly violence are always written off as no big deal, but when a child grows up tying that to pleasure and joy and satisfaction, terrorizing and harassing and making another person miserable, and doing something again and again even though the other person says no again and again, we're not doing them any favors by permitting that to continue, to let that compulsion keep building. Adolescents are impulsive. The job of parents is to help them learn how to control harmful or dangerous or antisocial impulses. This most definitely falls into that category, and I agree with you that being put in her shoes is fine, maybe even helpful, but what it will come down to is expressing why this is unacceptable, and coming down against this behavior the same way OP would in actual violence. Because it's a real slippery slope here, and needs nipped in the bud now. Commenter 3. My older brother used to hit us a lot as kids. It stopped when my parents decided to hold him down and let us hit him one time. He never laid hands on us again. The punishment fits the crime. Nor. ETA, this was a last-ditch effort. He had already been talked to, warned, privileges taken, groundings, etc. This was the last thing my parents could think of to keep all of us younger siblings safe. He learned his lesson, and it never was an issue again. Commenter 4. As someone with a brother, just do it. Mine was such a little shit and he did gross and rude stuff to me. His favorite thing was to eat my leftovers. I hate leftovers, but when I had something I liked he especially ate it. Or this one time he ate all the Krispy Kreme donuts I had because, as he said, I shouldn't get any fatter. I wasn't fat in high school, I had abs. I never got back at him. Update. Thanks to all who commented. It was pretty clear I had to follow through or wouldn't be respected, and that the punishment was fitting. Most people seem to agree except for the radical modern people for whom the concept of punishment seems total alien to them as a concept. I talked to my daughter and husband on the phone one more time too, and she said I for sure needed to follow through. There was a pug with a particularly funky gland expression at work that day, too, so perhaps Providence was showing its agreement as well. Some were telling me to wake him up with it or stink up his room, but I didn't want the house to smell for ages. I just told my son to come to the backyard with me for his punishment, and that if he at any point resisted or refused, I'd have Dad come home to assist and the punishment would be 20 times longer. I made clear that was literal. He said, "Fine, let's get this over with," and followed me out. I showed him the jar, it had 12 dogs' expressions, told him I was going to pop the lid and hold it to his nose and he was going to take 3 sniffs, and that's what he did. It got a bigger reaction than even I expected. After the first sniff his eyes widened and he was gagging, and he was holding his tummy afterwards, saying, "Oh my God, that is hideous." I told him, "It's just a smell, it's not harming you, right? Shouldn't I be able to do this as often as I want if I think it's funny, just like you do to your sister?" He said, okay, I learned my lesson, I'll stop," and turned to go back inside, but I said, "Oh no, don't you remember what I said would happen if you did that to your sister again? You weren't going to get to stop smelling it just because you hated it, just like she wasn't." He looked back at me as if hoping I was joking, and I said, "Think about how your sister felt, knowing you were going to do this again and make her feel sick and being powerless to stop it." I then gave him a choice. He could put his nose over the rim for 3 minutes straight and get it over with right now, or he could come back outside with me every hour on the dot for another 2 sniffs until I decided the lesson had been learned. He agonized over the choice and said there was no way he could do 3 minutes, so chose the latter. Once per hour that day we went back outside and it never seemed to get any easier for him, but after only the 4th time I said I think he's learned his lesson because I could see it was asterisk really getting to him. Didn't want anything overly harsh, but something very unpleasant which I think was achieved. I told him that I think he's learned why these sort of pranks aren't funny to people, and that if I ever heard of it happening again, he'd be spending a good, long while with his nose in a jar like this or worse. I think he got the message. Daughter and husband came home from their mini vacation later that night and there have been no incidents since. I think he got the message loud and clear. TLDR followed up on punishment for my son, I believe it was fair and effective. Comments. Commenter 1. Glad it worked. But why didn't he just hold his breath? That's what I'd do. Reply. He started trying to during the hourly follow-ups, but I had made it clear that the sniffs had to be obvious and audible, and that the jar wasn't leaving his nose until I'd heard them. Commenter 2. You are amazing and I applaud you. Thank you for teaching this kid such an important lesson, and also, for not letting him trample his sister's feelings peace without consequences. Commenter 3. I just wanted to say thank you. Some parents won't really follow through with punishment, for lots of reasons. I'm proud you stood up for your daughter and honestly believe that lessons like this will be so much better for him in the end, as well as anyone he interacts with through life. Stories number 16. I lost the love of my life over a post, and I can't stop blaming myself. I, 21M, was in a relationship with someone I genuinely believed was the love of my life, 20F. We shared the same faith, had similar values, and connected on a level I never had with anyone before. She was shy, soft-spoken, kind, and had a calming presence I really admired. I saw her as my future wife, someone I wanted to build a peaceful, happy life with. Our relationship had depth. We made mutual promises, not just the big ones like working through disagreements and never giving up on each other, but even small things, like never leaving each other on scene, and always sending a "good night" message to update each other before bed. Those small things mattered to both of us. It made us feel secure and connected. But about a week before things ended, she went to stay with a close female friend for a while, and during that time, I felt a noticeable shift. She got distant. Our conversations slowed down. Her energy changed. I didn't push, I just assumed she was busy having fun and wanted some space, and I gave it to her. But one night, I sent her a simple, "Good night, I love you" message. She opened it, and didn't reply. For a relationship where we both agreed that stuff like that mattered, it felt like a silent warning sign. The very next day, she saw a post I had reshared on social media, a dumb, edgy joke someone else had screenshotted and posted on X, formerly Twitter. It had that dark humor kind of vibe. I didn't even think twice before reposting it. To me, it was just an edgy joke, not a personal statement, not an attack on women, and definitely not something I thought would be taken seriously. This was the post in question. What type of $why they used to have to make a MF throw his jacket over a puddle. But she saw it, and she took it very seriously. She told me she felt disrespected and hurt, and that the post made her question the kind of man I was. Then she broke up with me. Told me not to contact her again. Deleted me off everything. No conversation, no grace, just cut me off completely. I was stunned. I've never apologized to someone the way I did with her. I dropped every ounce of ego and tried to explain that it was never meant to be offensive. I reminded her of the way I've always treated her, with respect, love, and consistency. I even stayed silent after she said, "Don't call me," because I thought I was respecting her boundary. I didn't push further. She in fact meant I should have reached out and still called her even if she said I shouldn't. I ended up dropping the texting and just called her. And the truth is, I couldn't even get myself together to explain myself over the phone, so we ended up hanging up. After the phone call she deleted me on everything, but I still had her number. A lot has been going on, and this is the first moment I've had the emotional bandwidth to sit down and express everything, so I wrote her a long message where I properly explained myself and apologized, and she read the message but said nothing, which is understandable. The part that stings is, I feel like everything I did for her, everything we built, was thrown away over one post. If I were actually misogynistic, if I disrespected women, if I didn't value her, I would have used her, lied, mistreated her. But I didn't. I showed up. I gave her love. My parents raised me better than that, especially my father, who taught me how to respect women deeply. That post wasn't who I am, and she knew that. I get that I messed up. I'm not playing victim. But I also feel like her reaction was way deeper than just that post. The distance was already there. The left on scene, the ignored, "I love you," the sudden shift in energy. It feels like she had already started checking out, and the post just gave her a reason to go. I don't know how to feel anymore. I know I'll have to move on eventually, but it's hard when it still feels like I wasn't even heard. Update. First of all, I want to thank everyone who commented on this and helped open my eyes to the situation. I truly appreciate all the responses, even the harsh ones. I didn't expect the post to pop off like it did, lol. For some people, feedback like that might be too much to handle, and yeah, I could have let the harsher comments get to me, but I posted this knowing I'd get a range of perspectives. That was the whole point, to understand where I went wrong, and learn from it. I didn't repost that joke to harm anyone, but that doesn't mean it didn't hurt someone I cared about. That's something I'll carry with me from here on. A few people pointed out that humor is subjective, and what's funny in a private group chat or among friends might not land the same way in a relationship or public space. They're 100% right. I've realized I need to be more mindful of what I post and who it could affect. Some also said this probably wasn't just about the post, and I've thought about that a lot. She had started acting distant before this happened, and it's possible she was already emotionally on her way out. If the post was the final straw, I can accept that too. I can't control how or why she left, but I can control how I respond to it. I'm not a woman, so I'll never fully understand how the post in question could hit someone with different experiences, trauma, or boundaries. And I'm not here to bash her or any woman at all. I'm also not trying to paint myself as the victim. This post wasn't about seeking sympathy, it was about hearing how others viewed the situation so I could reflect and move forward. What I know is that I've never disrespected her, I never betrayed her trust, and I never treated her badly. That's something y'all wouldn't have seen, but it's how I actually treated her and how I made her feel. She told me that herself. Whether she was scared to admit otherwise later, or if she wasn't being truthful about it, I'll never know. But I know I made the effort to respect her and make her feel safe around me. That's how my parents raised me, to treat people, especially women, with care and respect. The post itself was pretty stupid. I shouldn't have posted something that doesn't reflect who I am as a person. I know for a fact that if my parents saw it, they'd be disappointed in me too. Whether this post was truly her last straw, or if there was something deeper going on like some of you mentioned, I guess we'll never know. She was really into love triangle stories and those dramatic movie plots, so maybe there was some fantasy involved, or maybe I'm just overthinking it. Either way, it was her decision, and I have to respect that. What I can do now is be more mindful of what I post moving forward. Not just for her, but for everyone. And no, this post wasn't made by ChatGPT lol. I've seen those accusations floating around, and I get it. I work for a company that requires a ton of writing. The situation is very real, and I was genuinely just seeking outside opinions. I'm not asking for forgiveness, because at the end of the day that's not up to me. That's her decision. I'm not even hoping she comes back, because I most definitely F it up and I admit it. To those who've sent kind DMs and offered insight, thank you. I will move on. I'll grow. And I'll better myself because that's what this process is really about. I'm a grown man and I should have known better than to post stuff like that in the first place. Stories number 17. I, 42M, left my wife, 42F, after she kept making comments about me not being manly enough and not sure I did the right thing. We'd been together since we were 18. She was my first everything whereas she'd been with a few people before me. We have an 18-year-old daughter together who is an amazing, brilliant and kind person. I couldn't have asked for a better kid. The last few years my wife has been making the odd comment about my manliness etc. and I've just brushed it off, but she's really stepped it up the last year and I ended up leaving her about 3 months ago over it. I don't want this to sound like a humble brag, but I do think I'm quite manly, while also just being a normal person. I'm tall, work out a few times a week, I can do any DIY around the house, I can fix cars, I used to be an amateur boxer and cage fighter and still do it as a hobby to keep fit. The things she said that aren't manly about me are, I like to bake, I like to cook, I don't drink, I don't care if other people do, it's just not for me. I like Taylor Swift, Charlie XCX, Ariana Grande, Sabrina Carpenter etc. My main choice in music will always be rap, but having a teenager daughter these sort of artists get played and I like some of their songs so I listen to them. I don't see that as a bad thing. I have a powerful car and a motorbike, but my preferred method of transport is a VW Up. It's a small car with a little engine, but if it's just me and my gym bag or work bag I don't see the problem, plus I'm not one of them who feels like a car someone drives means anything. My ex-wife disagreed and said I give off a certain vibe in it. I tend to walk away from arguments with strangers. She perceives any slight as personal insult. If you cut in front of her in traffic she's leaning on the horn, don't say thank you if you hold a door open, she's screaming and shouting at you. I just prefer to let things slide. An example is someone was being obnoxious to me on a night out for no reason. He was in my face calling me all sorts of names and even pushed me a couple of times. I just smiled at him and walked away saying I hope he gets home safely. When we got home she said I embarrassed her in front of her friends by letting him talk to me like that. I said what's the point of me knocking out a drunk kid who's half my size? She said I'm a doormat for the world. There's a few other things mainly connected to stuff me and my daughter have in common around stupid social media videos. She said it's like living with 2 teenage girls. In September I left her. I said I can't be spoken to like this anymore and be belittled. It's not fair. Even then she had a dig and said a real man would change. She's changed her tune since and said she's willing to go to therapy both individual and couples and try and sort out her issues. I don't know if the cuts from things she said are too deep though. Since I've left I've felt more relaxed and happier. I don't have to worry when I put a song on or want to bake a cake or cook something a bit different what would be said etc. At the same time though it's scary as she's all I've known and being alone and meeting new people scare the life out of me as I've never done that before. Everything is telling me I'm on the right path now, but I have a niggling doubt in my head that all those words she spoke about me are true and I am an annoying person that will be alone forever. TLDR, I left my wife for constantly questioning my manliness and now I'm scared of the future. Edit. Sorry to everyone I didn't get a chance to reply to. Thank you all so much for all the love. I'm genuinely humbled. Relevant comments. When asked what started this, reply, I have no idea what triggered it. A few years ago the comments started but they've really ramped up the last year to 18 months. I did suspect an affair but I'm not sure. Commenter 1. There's probably some underlying insecurity within herself that's making her project this onto you. Manliness doesn't really mean anything. She's holding you to an arbitrary definition of what she thinks a man should be, but there's really no answer to that. You don't have to prove yourself. This is her issue, not yours. I think it's pretty manly to bond with your daughter, pursue hobbies that make you happy, and listen to your needs. She needs to know that you felt a weight off your shoulders without her frequent judgments if you're going to try and make it work. Reply. I don't know whether it's some social media she's consumed or what, but seems to think all men should be beer-swilling hotheads all the time. Commenter 2. What she doesn't understand, it takes a man to be able to walk away and laugh off insults. It's pretty easy to fight. Don't take her back. I feel bad for your daughter, her lack of being raised by a good woman. I guess she was good at some point and just rotted away. Did she get any new friends that might have been whispering in her ear? Maybe seeing some dude whispering in her ear. Reply. That's exactly what I said. Without biggieing myself up, that guy who was causing me trouble would have been little effort for me to hurt, but what's the point? My ego and pride aren't that shallow that I feel the need to prove myself against someone who poses no danger to me. It's been the last 5 to 10 years, and I don't want to blame social media, but it's definitely been since she started consuming more Instagram and TikTok. Commenter 4. You literally said you are happier and more relaxed alone than when you were with her. Okay, so say you end up alone. Still an improvement over what you had. Don't stay with her for your kid or because it's what's familiar, only do it if you truly want to be there. And if you do that, then set hard boundaries that aren't negotiable and broadcast that prior to even trying counseling with her. Because she was belittling you and you deserve better than that. Maybe she can get there, but you and only you can decide if she is worth that effort and risk to you. Reply. You are right. I know I'm on the right path and it feels better knowing others agree. When asked about marriage counseling, when she mentioned couples counseling the first time, she said, so someone else can help me make you the man I need, which I immediately called out. She's now said it's so she can work on her own problems with how she thinks men should be. Update March 30th, 2025. Hi all. I received a lot of love on my first post and had a few people ask for an update, so here we are over 3 months later. First and foremost, I didn't get back with her and the divorce is now in motion. Our daughter is very understanding, says I seem a lot happier and more relaxed. My ex-wife kept asking me back until about a month ago she announced she's seeing a 23-year-old, and when I felt relief rather than hurt or jealousy, I fully realized I am over her. Not really much else to report. I'm still baking and cooking and boxing and cage fighting, lol. I've got tickets to go see Sabrina Carpenter with my daughter, and we also got tickets to go see Kendrick Lamar, so I still like my rap and my teen girl pop, lol. I also want to say a big thank you to everyone who commented and messaged me after my last post. You were all so sweet and it was both humbling and gave me a massive big head, lol. Thank you all. TLDR, I'm good. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. My husband isn't manly enough because he drives a little car to his cage fighting matches, and listens to hyperpop while he fixes that little car with his bare hands, bloodied from the aforementioned cage fighting. Also, I hate it when he makes me cakes. Brother, I think your ex-wife might be insane. Reply. Haha, that is quite a good way of summing it up, I guess. It is nice to drive my little car and listen to espresso without being called gay as fuck, although I might get a window sticker that says that, lol. Commenter 2. She's dating someone so young to try and make you jealous, that's pathetic. Enjoy the baking and cage fighting. Commenter 3. It's also so gross. The guy she's dating is 5 years older than her daughter. Reply. They also went to the same secondary school and he was in his last year there while she was in her first year. In the school photo where all 1,000 kids are together, she's shown me them both stood near each other. Stories number 18. AITA for refusing to wear pants and long-sleeved shirts to pick up my son. 6 weeks ago my wife, 36, and I, 38, moved across the country with our son, 5, to live in my late grandma's old house that we inherited. We're from Seattle and moved to a town in Texas, and honestly my wife and I fucking hate living here, but it's financially better for us for the time being, plus honestly I am attached to my grandma's house. I have a lot of tattoos, long hair, just a general look that really isn't common here but was totally normal in Seattle. I've gotten a lot of looks and some shit from people here, which I don't really give a fuck about, but suffice it to say my appearance doesn't fit in. So far my wife had been the one picking our son up and dropping him off at school daycare because my work schedule was all fucked up, but I've settled into the same hours she works, so now we're picking our son up and dropping him off together. I met our son's teacher, late 20 SF, earlier today, and I could just tell she was uncomfortable with my appearance from the jump. My wife and I talked to her for a bit about how our son was adjusting to the new school. After talking about that for a bit, his teacher asked me to cover up my tattoos, which would basically require covering up all of my skin below the neck, when I come pick him up and drop him off because it was off-putting and apparently tattoos are against the school dress code. I said no. I was clothed, tank top and shorts, and I'm not a student, so I said I wasn't under their dress code. Besides, none of my tattoos that are visible when I'm clothed to any degree can be considered offensive unless you find the very idea of tattoos offensive. She insisted, which irritated me and my wife, and basically we just told her that I wasn't going to change how I dress and wasn't going to stop picking up my kid, so she and anyone else who had a problem would have to just deal with it. My wife and I think this is totally fucking ridiculous, but my mom, whom I called earlier today, said I should just go with it and that I'm being a pain in the ass. Edit. My wife and I have decided to call the principal of the school on Monday and set up a meeting to see if this policy even actually exists or if you guys are right and it's just the teacher either making shit up or applying teacher-student-parent-volunteer rules. We'll keep an eye on how our son is treated by the teacher and his classmates too. Sum of comments. Commenter. If it's a daycare and you are paying money, I would go somewhere else. Fuck them. If it's a public school, I would tell them to kick rocks. Fuck them too. Reply. It's a public school. Commenter. This is just the tip of the iceberg you're going to have to deal with there. And I hope your wife is never in the position to need women's healthcare. Women are dying in Texas, BC. They are being denied basic healthcare. Reply. I hope not too. I've had a vasectomy, so she won't need anything pregnancy related, and no issues like that run in her family. But honestly, I don't know if this will exactly be a permanent place for us. Even with this aside, we just hate it here. Commenter. As an educator in Texas, this is ridiculous. That said, some schools have weird dress code rules for parents like no pajamas, no house shoes, no curlers. But requiring long pants and sleeves. I would address this with her admin. And the superintendent if necessary. Because she is way out of line. Reply, thanks for that, the dress code was specifically against visible tattoos, not about long pants and sleeves. Commenter, report her to the superintendent. Telling a parent how to dress is unprofessional, inappropriate, and unacceptable. Unless you could be charged with indecent exposure, she needs to mind her business. Veteran teacher of 29 years. Reply, thanks for that, I'll go ahead and do that. The tattoo rule for children in primary school. I had guessed the policy was mostly meant for temporary tattoos. Commenter, you need to get the fuck out of Texas. Your kid will never get this time back. If they treat an adult like this, just imagine how they will treat your kids. You're exposing your kids to people like this because of some attachment you have to a house. Reply, yeah, I think so. We're gonna give it a year, but if we're still miserable here then we're gonna move. Update post. My wife and I called the front office of our son's school this morning and were able to actually meet with the principal and one of the vice principals right before school let out, so we got to leave work and pick our son up early too, which was really nice. Turns out those of you who said this was probably the teacher overstepping and not an actual rule were totally right. Apparently it is against dress code for both the students and teachers to have tattoos, temporary or otherwise, but as long as you're decent a parent can show up dressed as they like. The meeting went about as well as it could have gone. The principal was pretty avoidant of saying the teacher did anything wrong, per se, and did try to pass it off as the result of his teacher's inexperience, but she did say that the teacher's actions weren't right, so I guess that's something. My wife and I also asked if we could move our son to the other class if he seems unhappy for any reason or if we think the teacher is treating him unfairly, and the principal agreed, so that's also good. I also just wanted to address some of the things that came up multiple times in comments on the original post. Like I said a couple times in the comments, we live in a fairly small town. My wife and I actually work in a different, and somewhat bigger, town than the one we live in, so I didn't give my exact location, plus I'm not really familiar with the regions of Texas. Basically, I'm pretty sure Dallas is the closest big city to us, but even Dallas isn't exactly close. I can't speak to how popular my look is in the cities, except Houston. My wife lived there for a year as a teenager and said tattoos were fairly common, but it's definitely not common here. I've seen a couple guys with like 1 or 2 tattoos, but none in color, like mine, and none with nearly as many as I have, and none actually in the town we live in either. Not totally relevant, but they've all got full beards too, and I like to keep my face clean shaven. Like I said in my original post, we moved here for a mix of financial and sentimental reasons. Basically, even before we got here, the plan was to not stay for any longer than 3 years, but honestly, we might be moving before the end of this one because my wife and I really despise it here and our son seems so let down every weekend. I didn't really want to get into it, but I had to get surgery to treat my IBD about a year and a half ago, which obviously was costly, plus we wanted to save a good amount of money for our son while he's young so he won't need as much in student loans if he eventually goes to college, and we basically weren't able to afford to live the way we wanted in Seattle anymore. On top of that, to be honest, I am very attached to my grandma's house and I just wasn't able to part with it immediately when she died. My wife and my grandma are the only people I've really felt at home with, if that makes any sense, and my grandma's death was unexpected so I really wasn't prepared to just get rid of her house. My wife, the absolute fucking angel that she is, suggested that we move here for a little while, just until we know where to settle until our son leaves for college. Maybe we'll get enough when we sell the house that it can be Seattle, maybe we won't. My wife and son mean more to me than anything and everyone else in the world combined, so I don't want them to live in a place they hate. 3. Some of you think that I shouldn't have said anything and should have just complied for fear of my son being treated poorly, but I think that's a super shitty precedent to set and model for our son, and I think it probably wouldn't affect anyone's behavior anyway. Obviously, whether people accept my tats or not doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things, but I don't want my son to think that it is okay for other people to tell him to look a certain way because that's what they want or comfortable with, nor do I want him to think it's okay to treat others that way. I don't think teaching him to conform is ever a good thing. I also don't think trying to conform actually makes people accept you anymore, but that's just me. Plus he's 5 and he's already brought cupcakes to school, so I should hope the other 5-year-olds aren't going to have a problem. 4. I thought I was clear in the original post that all of my tattoos that are visible when I'm clothed are not offensive, but apparently I wasn't. I'm not going to show them, obviously, but basically most of the visible ones are of animals, extant and extinct, with some book and movie references too. Even the evolution tattoo I have is mostly not visible with a tank on. I do have some gory and some X-rated tattoos that would be inappropriate for kids to see, but those are all not visible when I'm clothed. I'd need to be in nothing but a Speedo, or super short shorts, which I don't wear, for even some of them to be visible, and I'd need to be naked for all of them to be visible, so suffice it to say there wasn't anything visible that a reasonable person would find offensive. 5. A lot of you have weird opinions about whether men should wear tank tops at all or not. I think that's just a weird thing to comment on, honestly. I mean, who cares? I'm not going to comment on whether men should hold their big belt buckle in public or not. I wasn't wearing a wife beater either, it was a tank top. As long as it feels like summer to me, I'm gonna wear one. Plus my wife really loves them, so I'm definitely not going to just excise them from my wardrobe. The meeting with our son's teacher was impromptu anyway. If it had been an actual parent-teacher conference, sure, I probably would have gone with a t-shirt, but we just thought it'd be a quick get out, pick up our son, and go occasion. Sorry if that was too long. Thanks for the advice everyone, it was much appreciated. Stories number 19. AITA for telling my sister and her neighbor to stop convincing my husband into therapy, otherwise we'll leave. I am 27F, and I have been married to my husband, 28M, from past 3 years. We grew up together and even went to the same school and college. We started dating when we turned 15. My husband and I moved temporarily in my parents' home. My mom is extremely sick, so she asked me to stay with her for a month or two, so I started living with her. My sister, 24F, lives with my parents and she's being a pain in my butt as well, along with their neighbor. This neighbor is very close to my parents and visits every day and spends time with my mom and sister, which I am grateful of, but I don't appreciate how she's butting in my relationship. My husband is a bit rude, or appears as one. He doesn't like people and minds his own business. He's kinda angry all the time but doesn't show it. He doesn't like talking about it with others except me. He's the type of guy that if a family member needed his help he'll be the first one to show up. My husband is quiet all the time and only talks to strangers if they initiate the conversation, otherwise he'll focus on his work. He's a workaholic, but the neighbor keeps trying to talk to him. At first she would just initiate small talks, which my husband hates but tolerated, but then she tried to convince him to go to therapy and said that her cousin is a therapist. My husband refused, but she kept bringing it up every day and tried to convince him. After a few days, when he had enough, he told her that he appreciates her concern but she should stay out of his life as it's none of her concern. My husband told me that he's tired of this and he's only staying with us because I and his mill asked him, and he doesn't want his mill to get involved, so either I stop this or he'll go back home. So I told her to stop asking or convincing my husband into therapy or whatever, and she said that she's just trying to help me and my husband. Maybe my husband needs help cause the way he's acting is like an abuser, and asked me if I am okay. Even my sister joined her and said that my husband's behavior is concerning and maybe I should do something about it. I got a bit angry after hearing them and told them that they should stay out of our lives, otherwise we will leave right away and go back to our home. My husband and my stance is that we are here to cheer my mother up, which is why we aren't involving her into this, but if they don't stop we will leave. Both of them said that they'll stop interfering in my marriage and I was rude to them when they just wanted to help me. Am I the asshole? I get they were trying to help me, but who would get this pushy? I don't even know her properly. Forgive me for a long post and for my English. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Well, if your husband is unhappy, has anger issues, and just seems like an overall grouchy person, I think he could benefit from therapy. No one is necessarily an asshole, but your husband has some rude behaviors that could be worked out, or the therapist could help him focus on his well-being during this transitional time. Reply. My husband is not unhappy, it's his personality and I am okay with this. No one is necessarily an Really? My sister and her neighbor are basically forcing him into therapy when he never even asked them for their advice or help, and he's just living with us all only for me and his mill. I think my sister's neighbor is and so is my sister for backing her up. My husband wasn't rude to her at all, he tolerated her, and when he had enough he asked her to back off. I think everyone, including me or you or anyone, would get tired of this. Commenter 2. Hubby is probably happier in his own home. Reply. For real, I am reading all the replies but I feel like I am the asshole for asking him to stay with me. He loves to spend time and take care of my mother as if she's his own, but I think my sister and her neighbor is too damn much for him. He addresses my mom as his mom and he specifically said he didn't want to get her involved into this. But I think if my sister and her neighbor doesn't stop I should send him back home. OOP should head back her husband up, and not letting her sister and the neighbor come at him. Reply, you are not wrong. I also feel like I am an asshole to my own husband when he does everything for me and to make me happy, and I feel like I should have backed him up and sent him home instead of letting him tolerate. My husband is one of a kind. Sure, he may have some issues, but in no way is he a bad human being or a husband or a son-in-law. In fact, he cares so much about my mother and treats her as his own mother. I am ashamed of myself at this point. My husband is not an abuser like they or others here are accusing. I've been with him since childhood. I used to play with him and I started dating him and now I am married to him. My husband is fine, and if he requires help from a professional then I'll be the first one to insist him to seek help, even if I have to force him. But the way he is, it's his personality and he has always been like this, and even if I tried to force and tried to drag his 90-kilo ass, I can't, and we were happy and having fun with just being together. Maybe on my part it was a mistake to bring him along with me. Update. TLDR, I went to live with my mom with my husband to support her because she's sick, but my sister and their neighbor doesn't like my husband's attitude because he appears rude and they constantly were telling my husband to go for therapy and were overly pushy about it. So 3 days ago after I made the post I decided to send my husband back home. He was concerned about what would my mom think and would it hurts her. I told him that I'll deal with my mom and my sister and join him. I stayed with my mom for extra 2 days tending and supporting her, but today I told her that I am going back home, but I'll visit her every other day if possible every day. My mom quickly caught on and she said first my husband left and now I am also leaving. She asked me if everything is okay. I told her everything is okay and we are just leaving because of work-related stuff. I lied because we don't want to stress my mom because of sibling drama. When my sister came to know about this she asked me if I am leaving because of what she and their neighbor said. I was honest with her and told her yes, I can't stay in a place where my husband is not respected, so it's best if we leave. She said she respects my husband but his behavior is not normal and they were concerned about my safety and my husband might need therapy, the usual blah blah. I said I appreciate her concern, but constantly telling someone to go for therapy and implying that something's wrong with them is borderline harassment and I should have put a stop to it instead of letting my husband tolerate this. She tried to stop me again and told me that I don't have to leave. I told her that I am leaving and going back to my husband. I'll visit as often as possible, but I didn't expect that we would experience so much drama just for helping my mom. So now I am back in my home with my husband and I wish I could have stayed with my mom a bit longer, but my sister and her neighbor screwed it all up for us. Even if by any chance my husband is abusive, even then she has no right to harass my husband with therapy, as it's none of her business. I'm kinda angry, not gonna lie. AITA for telling my sister and her neighbor to stop. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Glad you got out of the situation, though it's sad that this drama had to come between you and spending time with your mom. It's shocking some PPL will just take such personal offense to others just existing in ways they don't understand and will cruelly judge anyone who is the least bit different from them. From your first post it sounds like they just hated your husband for being an introvert. Commenter 2, yeah, it's honestly wild how some people will make snap judgments based on nothing but their own biases. It's like they don't even try to understand that people can just be different, and that's okay. My husband is super introverted, and instead of trying to see things from his perspective, they just decided to pick him apart. It really sucks that this whole situation made things so tense between me and my mom, but I'm just glad I'm finally out of that toxic environment. Hopefully, things can settle down over time. Reply, I feel the same. At first I didn't think it would escalate so much, but I think I should have cut it short and told my sister and her neighbor to back off and stay away from my husband. I've known my husband since childhood and calling him abusive or asking me if I'm okay is highly offensive for our marriage. I am 5 feet 4 inches and my husband is 5 feet 11 inches, he can literally crush me with his weight lol, but guess what? I trust him and I understand him and I'm 100% completely sure he won't harm me. And on my last post I got a lot of suggestions that therapy will help my husband in our marriage, but my husband never asked for it. Even if I drag his 90-kilo ass to a therapist it won't work. If I ask my husband to seek therapy he'll do it for me, but if he doesn't want then I don't think I should force him, right? He treats me like a queen and does everything I ask of him, so as his wife I should do my best to defend him and help him as much as I can. I'm sorry for the rant, but this is exactly what I want to tell my sister and much more, but for my mom I quietly left and avoided all the drama. Stories number 20. My husband is eating more, and it makes me want to cry. I am just so overwhelmed right now. I've honestly been overwhelmed nearly every day for the past 3 weeks. Things were really bad, for a really long time. Since I met my husband almost a decade ago, we've been poor in some form or another. Sometimes we were living paycheck to paycheck, and to us that was glamorous. Other times, like for the last year and a half, we were slowly leeching money, inching toward homelessness. It was just an unfortunate mix of low-paying jobs, emergencies that drained our funds just when we were getting ahead, and a low support system. And throughout it all, my husband has been my rock. He's my best friend, my shoulder to lean on, my light. And despite how much he's tried to hide it, I know how hard all of this has been hitting him. The thing that kills me is that he barely eats. Part of it is just constant fear and anxiety that steals his appetite, and the other part is unmediated ADHD that makes food practically invisible to him. He's already so lean too, and I can see how much it just saps what little energy he has. Then I got this job. A career-stable position that pays me far more than the both of us have ever made combined. We picked up everything and moved to a nice neighborhood in a high COL area, and we are still comfortable. I'm not rich by any means, but my God, I have never had this kind of money before, and I can see what it's doing to my husband. In just under a month I have seen him transform into someone I've never seen before. He has so much energy, the house is filled with his laughter more often than not. And he eats so much now. He scarfs down full dinners with Whole Foods, I catch him snacking throughout the day, and he eats breakfast now. He just came into the room and did a goofy little flex, saying how strong his body feels now, and he even thinks he's developing some muscles, ooh. And it was such a small moment, but now I'm sitting here with a tightness in my chest and a thread of tears in my eyes. I'm so happy that my husband is eating. Edit, holy cow, you guys are so sweet. I stepped away to play Baldur's Gate, I bought it this morning, and as someone who has never played D&D before I am overwhelmed lol, so I'm sorry for not responding. I'm too embarrassed to show my husband this, we're not really social media people, and I wasn't expecting this to gain any traction, but wow, y'all are just making my heart melt. My life has become so much more than I ever could have imagined, and I am still, obviously, trying to get acclimated to the new normal. Also please go read the comment from you phrenological below, God what a gift. I was doing a good job of keeping the tears in until I saw that. Edit 2, shrimp tacos for dinner. It was our first time ever making them, and my husband kept exclaiming, shrimp tacos. At home, almost as if he were in shock lol. Definitely going to be a new staple in our home. I did end up telling my husband about the post over dinner, and he thought it was sweet, but frankly I think he was too absorbed in the shrimp tacos to give it a second thought Like I said, we're not really social media people. Anyways, I'm off to go try my hand at Baldur's Gate again before I hit the hay. I fell into a hole and got my ass kicked, smiley face. I hope y'all have a great rest of your night. Stories number 21. AITA for refusing to let my neighbor use my vintage bathtub for his therapy sessions. I, 28F, live in an old Victorian house I inherited from my grandfather. One of the features of the house is the original clawfoot bathtub from the 1920s in the upstairs bathroom. I was originally going to look at having it removed but kept putting it off and eventually fell in love with it, so I kept it. Enter my next door neighbor Dennis, 50M. Dennis is eccentric. He's into all these weird health trends, like grounding his feet in buckets of dirt for electrical balance. Lately, he's gotten into hydrotherapy, which apparently requires him to soak in cold water for extended periods to reset his nervous system. 2 weeks ago, Dennis came over and, completely out of the blue, asked if he could use my bathtub for his hydrotherapy sessions. I thought he was joking, but no, he earnestly explained that my tub was the perfect energy conduit because it was pre-industrial revolution and untainted by modern manufacturing processes. I told him no, obviously. I don't want a rando wrinkly old dude filling it with ice water and doing whatever nonsense he's into. Dennis did not take this well. He said I was being selfish with community resources, and that because I inherited the house rather than buying it, I had a duty to share since I didn't work for it. He started bringing it up every time he saw me, passive-aggressively saying things like, must be nice to hoard that all to yourself. Then, somehow, this got out to the neighborhood Facebook group, who loves drama, and now half the street thinks I'm the villain for gatekeeping my own bathtub. The cherry on top is Dennis conveniently claims that his shower stopped working too, so he doesn't even have a place to clean himself. Not like this was a favorite pastime of his to begin with, respectfully. I was trying to just avoid Dennis as much as I could and ignore the few comments from my neighbors until I ran into one of my neighbors while I was going for a walk Saturday evening. I don't really know her, but we chatted briefly and somehow the issue came up. I was expecting some sympathy for the absurdity of this all, but this woman proceeds to tear into me. Like literal verbal assault, by the end of it asking me why I was being so stupid and selfish, that I have multiple bathrooms in the house and couldn't even spare it to help this old man's health. This morning I found a literal gift-wrapped bar of soap in my mailbox. There was no note or anything, but I assumed this was her insanely petty passive-aggressive way of telling me to shove it. I do not want this man soaking in my tub. I do not care about his nervous system reset. But now I feel like I'm losing my mind because everyone around me is acting like I'm some kind of selfish monster. I get that some of the people in the neighborhood aren't keen on me living here, but I live by myself and work and go to school all day, and I'm genuinely starting to worry that I'm gonna come home someday to find Dennis reclining in my tub. Ada.